Chapter 501. When the 2,000-odd people leaped onto the warship, the huge circular platform immediately soared up and floated quietly in the air. Chi! Chi! The 15 dragon heads behind the warship spewed out a huge shockwave. The divine dragon warship immediately shot forward. It carried 2,000-odd people and moved at Mach 4. The surrounding scenery flashed by quickly. After flying for more than 50 kilometers, the sky above them suddenly turned gray. Dark clouds churned. The further they went, the darker the color of the clouds became. In the end, it was completely black, completely blocking out the sunlight. When the group looked down, the azure seawater had turned scarlet. A faint smell of blood lingered in the air for a long time. The smell of blood mixed with the smell of the seawater. It was extremely unbearable. Xiaoqin frowned slightly. Aside from the unbearable smell of blood, he could also clearly feel resentment in the air. The resentment of the dead made one feel uncomfortable. It put a faint pressure on one's mind. Xiaoqin, you felt that mental pressure as well, right? Sun Guangquan, who had been silent all this while, suddenly asked. Xiaoqin nodded and said, yes. It would be difficult for a regular cultivator to bring out their full strength under such circumstances. Sun Guangquan smiled and said, that's right. The closer you get to the core of the battlefield, the stronger the mental pressure. There is a challenge, but it can also temper one's mental energy. This is why so many half-step martial monarchs come here. As Xiaoqin spoke, a huge divine dragon warship appeared in front of them. It was more than 8 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. When they looked up, it looked like a small city flying in the sky. No wonder Bai Lishi said that there was no need to be too astonished at the warship under them. Compared to the huge warship before them, it was like comparing a baby to an adult. They were on completely different levels. Figures in purple robes flew out from the huge warship with killing intent all over their bodies. Bang! The warship under Xiaoqin docked with the huge warship. Everyone walked towards the huge warship like it was flat ground. Exquisite tents were set up on the battleship, and a few magic energy cannons could be seen every 100 meters. Feng Buyu led the Divine Dragon Palace's people over to the crowd and introduced the situation of the battlefield. It was not much different from what Bai Lishi had said. After saying that, someone came over and gave everyone a jade card. The front of the jade card was engraved with a cyan flood dragon. That was the symbol of the Dragon God Palace. Behind it were hundreds of horizontal and vertical lines that formed small grids. If one counted carefully, there were no less than 10,000 of them. Every time you kill a demon dweller, a black dot will appear in your grid. Each black dot is 1 point. With this jade token, you can go to the camp to exchange for whatever you want. The person who gave Xiaoqin the jade plate explained everything in detail. After the jade tokens were distributed, some warriors immediately left the place and flew towards the darkest part of the sky. Xiaoqin felt somewhat puzzled. He said, even if the experiential training starts like this, there are no rules and regulations? Bai Lishi smiled and said, it is not that the Divine Dragon Palace does not want to talk about rules and regulations. It is that the demons do not have any rules and regulations. All you need to do on this battlefield is kill the demons you see. I will take my leave first. The two of you will take your leave first. Sun Guangquan performed a cupped fist salute to Xiaoqin and Bai Lishi before leaping into the boundless Scarlet Sea. Xiaoqin felt it was strange. He asked, Big Brother Sun is not coming with us. Bai Lishi explained, this time, he is going to the core of the battlefield. He will not come out until he breaks through to Martial Monarch. His destination is different from ours. As Xiaoqin watched Sun Guangquan leave, he could not help but feel solemn. If he did not come out, it meant that he was prepared to die. If he did not succeed, he would die for a righteous cause. Although Xiaoqin enjoyed a great reputation and was undefeatable unless a martial monarch appeared, he was nothing. However, if a martial monarch appeared, he would be nothing. Xiaoqin was a proud person. Naturally, he was not willing to be stuck below martial monarch for the rest of his life. For this, he would not hesitate to risk his life. Shao Qian withdrew his gaze and looked at Bai Lishi. He said, "Your destination should be different from mine, right?" Bai Lishi nodded and smiled. "Previously, I only went around the periphery a few times. This time, I am going to the inner area. This is your first time here, so you should go around the periphery first. Be careful. I'll be leaving as well." The strength of the three differed. Sun Guangquan was the strongest, Bai Lishi was second, and Shao Qian was the weakest. Naturally, they could not have their experiential training in the same place. Shao Qian was not too surprised by this. He muttered, "Sun Guangquan can promise himself that he will not come out until he becomes a martial monarch. In that case, I, Shao Qian, can also promise myself that I will not come out until I become a half-step martial monarch. Deep sea battlefield, here I come." Shao Qian shouted in his heart. A resolute gaze appeared in Shao Qian's eyes. He did not hesitate to jump off the divine dragon warship and set foot on the boundless Scarlet Sea. Shao Qian walked calmly on the Scarlet Sea. Occasionally, cultivators rushed past him, leaving Shao Qian in the dust. Shao Qian was not in a rush. He simply walked calmly. After 1 hour, 3 small islands appeared in front of him. The islands were not large, only a few hundred meters in radius. All sorts of talisman scripts floated around the islands, forming a defensive formation. The formations of the 3 islands seemed to be connected to each other, giving off an indistinct spiritual light. If the Divine Dragon warship was the Divine Dragon Palace's main camp, then these 3 islands would be the outposts, acting as a buffer for the main camp. Cultivators in front continuously returned to the small islands in sorry states from the pitch-black sky. Immediately, healing-type cultivators on the islands went to check on the injuries of the people who returned and performed emergency treatment. It looked like these small islands were not just the outposts but also a supply and treatment station for the cultivators participating in the experiential training. "The friend in front, wait up!" A shout came from behind him. Shao Qian turned his head to take a look and saw a small team of about 10 people rushing towards him. The person leading the group wore heavy blue battle armor and carried a huge sword on his back. He had thick eyebrows and a wide forehead. With one look, it was clear he was a cultivator who used brute force. This person was a peak superior grade martial king. His eyes were very spirited. Shao Qian turned around and asked, "What's the matter?" That person smiled and said, "Let me introduce myself first. I am Wu Quan, a disciple of the Great Chu Nation's Giant Sword Gate. These are the companions I invited to participate in the experiential training. I see that you are only a peak medial grade martial king. How about you come with us? After we pass these 3 outpost islands, we will officially enter the battlefield. With more people, it will be easier for us to take care of each other." Shao Qian thought for a while. Then, he performed a cupped fist salute and said, "In that case, many thanks, Brother Wu. However, my cultivation realm is rather low. Will I be a burden to you?" Wu Quan smiled and said, "That won't be the case. Cultivation realm is not the only way to measure a person's combat prowess. I see that you walk on the water very easily. Your shoes are not wet at all. You must be an expert in movement techniques. Coincidentally, our group lacks such a person." Shao Qian smiled and did not say anything more, agreeing to the other party's invitation. Shao Qian did not know what the deep-sea battlefield was like. It would be good to join this group and familiarize himself with the environment. After that, Wu Quan introduced Shao Qian to the group. Aside from Wu Quan, the others scoffed at Shao Qian. They did not show much interest. Although none of them were half-step martial monarchs, none of them were lower than superior-grade martial kings. Hence, they looked down on Shao Qian, who was only a medial-grade martial king. Shao Qian smiled faintly and ignored them. He followed the group and continued forward. As he continued forward, the originally dark clouds above his head turned completely pitch black. It was as if ink had been applied to the sky, blocking all the sunlight. Although it was clearly daytime, Xiao Chen's vision was dark. He could see only 500 meters around him. He needed to circulate his essence to his eyes before he could see anything further. There was no wind on the sea. The faint smell of blood in the air seemed to have solidified, making one feel very uncomfortable. The heavy resentment and the formless pressure on one's spirit also put some substantial pressure on one's body. Xiao Chen, we have arrived at the deep-sea battlefield. Look around. If you see any demons, immediately come back and inform us. The one who spoke was the vice-captain of the group, Ping Xingteng. Like Wu Quan, he was a peak superior grade martial king. However, he looked down on Xiao Chen. When Wu Quan invited Xiao Chen, Ping Xingteng had an unsightly expression on his face. However, because the other party was the captain, Ping Xingteng could not say it out loud. He could only endure it. Xiao Chen was unhappy in his heart. Ping Xingteng's tone was very commanding. However, he did not say anything. He pushed off the ground and left this place. After 15 minutes, Xiao Chen rushed back. He said calmly, there are 10 middle-ranked blood demons about 3 kilometers to the southeast. There are 6 or 7 ghost race cultivators 5 kilometers to the north. There are dozens of high-ranked shadow demons 6 kilometers to the east. There are other cultivators fighting in the demons closest to the other directions. Before coming, Xiao Chen had read some books and gained a basic understanding of the 18 races of demons. Hence, he could name all the demons in the deep-sea battlefield. Wu Quan smiled and said, Brother Zhao's movement technique is indeed powerful. Not many people can do that. It has saved us a lot of trouble. Ping Xingteng smiled coldly and said, so what if your movement technique is powerful? Can it be of any help in battle? Xiao Chen did not bother to argue with Ping Xingteng. He smiled and said, Brother Ping is right. When the time comes, I will just watch. I will not cause you any trouble. Ping Xingteng smiled and said, it's good that you know. Wu Quan, tell me, which of the 3 directions should we go? Wu Quan analyzed for a while and said, the ghost race is difficult to deal with. Let's not go to the north. The shadow demons are weaker. If there are too many of them, it will be problematic. Let's go to the southeast. There are 10 middle-ranked blood demons. With some effort, we should be able to deal with them safely. I think so too. They are just middle-ranked blood demons. They are not that powerful. Ping Xingteng nodded. Xiao Chen had met middle-ranked blood demons in the demon battlefield before. They were as strong as a superior grade martial king. However, in the deep-sea battlefield, everyone's mental energy was suppressed. They could bring out only 90% of their strength at best. As for local battles, the blood demons would not be affected at all. Chapter 502. Given the situation, they had to be careful when dealing with the blood demons. Otherwise, they might fail miserably. With everyone hurrying at full speed, the blood demon appeared in everyone's field of vision in the time it took to brew 2 cups of tea. Ping Xingteng waved his hand, and a saber appeared in his grasp. He smiled sinisterly and said, I'll take the lead. Let's see how many blood demons there are in the deep-sea battlefield. The others also drew their weapons and followed closely behind him. They all had excited expressions on their faces. Boom! Boom! The scarlet sea churned and waves surged. Ping Xingteng was pretty strong. With a sudden burst of power, he severely injured a middle-rank blood demon with 3 saber strikes. However, the other 9 blood demons surrounded him. Wu Quan drew the huge sword on his back and shouted, Go and help. Dang! Dang! The situation quickly turned chaotic. This team that had formed at the last minute did not have any tacit understanding. The moment they charged over, the experienced blood demons split them up, forcing them to fight their own battles. The advantage of numbers instantly vanished. The scarlet water in the sea choked the noses of several cultivators. Several cultivators even panicked for a moment when the blood splashed on their faces. Xiao Chen shook his head to himself. However, he could not just leave them to die, so he could only wander around. Wherever someone was in mortal danger, Xiao Chen would rush over and draw the attention of the blood demons away. The only one who could attract Xiao Chen's attention was the team leader, Wu Quan. This person was very bold. When he saw that the situation was not right, he immediately attracted the attention of the 3 blood demons. This alleviated the pressure on the team significantly. On the other hand, Ping Xingting did not feel any pressure at all. On the other hand, although Ping Xingting was strong, he only cared about killing excitedly, not paying attention to his surroundings. The battle lasted for an hour. At the price of light injuries, Ping Xingting managed to turn the situation around. How delightful! Ha 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 ha! Ping Xingting laughed excitedly as he wiped off the blood on his face. With one saber strike, he severely injured the last blood demon. Wu Quan quickly stopped Ping Xingting and said, "Brother Ping, wait for a while. Let's give the points of this blood demon to Xiao Chen. After all, he was the one who discovered the blood demons. Otherwise, we would not have been able to find these blood demons so easily. You would have obtained 2 points already." As the team leader, Wu Quan was still very competent. He had hunted down 3 blood demons, but he had only managed to kill one of them. The last hits from the other 2 sides were given to the other team members. He only got 1 point. Ping Xingting stopped, feeling somewhat displeased. He said to Xiao Chen, "You are right. You can kill this blood demon. I will let you have it." Xiao Chen waved his hand and said indifferently, "There is no need. These points are not enough for everyone to share. I will not join in the fun." Ping Xingting laughed mischievously and said, "Brat, you are quite tactful. In that case, I will not be polite." When the saber chopped down, the blood demon's aura disappeared. Another black dot appeared on the back of Ping Xingting's jade pendant. Wu Quan shook his head. Ping Xingting had killed those 3 blood demons himself, so he could not say anything. After that, it was time to split the spoils of war. The middle-ranked blood demons did not have many valuable items. However, with Wu Quan's help, everyone more or less obtained something. The heads of the 10 blood demons were split among the 5 injured people. With Wu Quan's explanation, Xiao Chen learned that these heads could be exchanged for some high-quality medicinal pills and spirit herbs on the outpost islets. Under normal circumstances, no one had any objections to giving the heads to the injured cultivators first. After resting for a while, the group continued on their way. With Xiao Chen scouting the way for them, they would always find the most suitable prey. After a day of fighting, no one in the group suffered any serious injuries. Only a few people were slightly injured. After some treatment, they would be able to recover their combat prowess. The sky turned completely dark. The dark clouds above made the night seem even darker. The moment night fell, everyone's vision became so dark that they could not even see their own fingers. When Wu Quan saw that someone wanted to take out a night illumination stone, he quickly stopped him. "Don't. If you take out a night illumination stone, it will attract all the demons in the periphery. At that time, even if you have 9 lives, you will not be able to survive." That person was startled and quickly stopped what he was doing. With a flip of his hand, Wu Quan took out a palm-sized model of a house. After Xiao Chen formed hand seals, the house immediately turned back to its normal size. It looked very mystical. Wu Quan smiled and said, "This is a secret treasure that I obtained by accident. It is useless in battle. However, it is best to use it to rest. Everyone, go in." The house had tables, chairs, and wooden stools. All sorts of furniture of various sizes were available. There was even a stove for cooking. The night illumination stones were embedded in the ceiling, illuminating the room. However, none of the light shone out. Wu Quan smiled and said, "You all take a simple rest. Tonight, Xiao Chen and I will keep watch." A sinister wind blew. It was already late at night, but the Scarlet Sea was not peaceful. All sorts of strange roars came from it, never stopping. They reverberated endlessly in the night sky, seemingly never going away. The sounds that were not horrifying during the day caused one's hair to stand on end when they heard them late at night. One could even hear the miserable cries of some unlucky cultivators caught by the demons in the night and eaten. The heart-wrenching screams made one's heart palpitate. Wu Quan's and Xiao Chen's expressions did not change much despite all these strange sounds. The two sat on the roof, each holding a bottle of wine as they chatted leisurely. It was all thanks to you during the day. Now that I think about it, it is incredible. Unexpectedly, not a single severely injured person appeared. Wu Quan took a big gulp of wine and wiped away the wine at the corner of his mouth. Then, he thanked Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen brought the bottle of wine to his lips and took a sip. Then, he smiled gently and said, "You are a good leader." I did not do much. Xiao Chen's words were not exaggerated. Wu Quan was indeed a good leader. After the initial run-in, the team had already formed some tacit understanding. They would no longer be separated by the demons after a short fight. Such a situation was inseparable from Wu Quan's leadership. Xiao Chen did not do much himself. He just went out for a walk and used his spiritual sense to scan the area. When Xiao Chen fought, he did not put in much effort. He only paid attention to the abilities of each type of demon. When Xiao Chen saw a teammate in a dangerous situation, he would lure the demons away. This was basically all he did. After a few more days, when Xiao Chen figured out the habits and abilities of all the demons, he would leave. Hence, there was no need to leave any impression here. Wu Quan smiled gently, tacitly acknowledging Xiao Chen's praise. He took another sip of wine and asked, "Xiao Chen, why did you come to the deep-sea battlefield?" Xiao Chen thought for a while and said, "Naturally, it is to temper my strength and improve further." Wu Quan shook his head and said, "I am not talking about that. Let me put it this way. After you improve further, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a grandmaster of a sect? Do you want to be a wanderer? Do you want to be the protector of a sect? Or do you want to join the royal court?" Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. Wu Quan's question was somewhat interesting. Simply put, why do you want to practice martial arts? Xiao Chen thought for a while and said seriously, "I want to climb to the peak of martial arts and see what the scenery is like at the peak. Then, I want to leave my name in history. Even after 10,000 years, the world will not forget your name because of the passage of time." Wu Quan's mouth gaped slightly. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "This dream is really grand. People like the Tianwu Emperor and the Thunder King are hard to come by even in a few thousand years." Xiao Chen smiled gently and said, "I was just joking. I want to be a wanderer. I want to travel the world and meet the famous bladesmen of the world." Only then did Wu Quan smile in relief. If others heard what Xiao Chen said earlier, they would definitely treat it as the nonsense of a youth who did not know the gravity of the situation. The latter was more normal. However, Xiao Chen did not know that after many years, every time he recalled the conversation he had tonight, he would sigh. The youth from that day had indeed become an existence comparable to the Thunder King. His name would be left in history, lasting for 10,000 years. Furthermore, the so-called legend was by his side. History remembered that white-robed bladesman who liked to wear white robes and always had a calm and indifferent expression. However, it did not remember such a night. He, Wu Quan, had drunk wine and chatted with that legendary person. Furthermore, that legendary person was his leader in name. The night passed unknowingly as the two drank and chatted. Nothing unexpected happened. The cultivators in the room woke up one after another. When they pushed open the door and looked out, visibility was still very low. However, it was not to the point where they could not see their fingers when they stretched out their hands. After circulating their essence, they could still see very far. "Hey, Xiao Chen, go out and see if there are any demons. This elder brother's treasured saber has been thirsty for an entire night." The first thing Ping Xingting said when he came out was to order Xiao Chen around. His tone was very smooth and did not seem unnatural at all. Xiao Chen found it funny. This fellow is really addicted to using me. He does not seem embarrassed at all. Wu Quan said somewhat worriedly, "How about I go? You did not sleep for an entire night. You might not be in good spirits." "It's fine. It is fine to not sleep for an entire night." Hearing Xiao Chen say that, Wu Quan did not bother with Xiao Chen anymore. It was indeed fine for cultivators to not sleep for a few days and nights. Xiao Chen's figure gently drifted away, and he moved 100 meters. With a few flashes, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Ping Xingting smiled at the crowd and said, "Although this fellow is not very strong, I admit that I am inferior to him in terms of movement techniques." In yesterday's battle, Xiao Chen's information was very accurate. It was as he had said. Xiao Chen had basically just drifted around, not burdening them at all. He did not compete with Ping Xingting for any rewards. He has a good temper and does not compete for anything. I like such youths. Speaking of which, the few of you should learn from him. Newcomers should have the awareness of newcomers. Xiao Chen is your role model. Unfortunately, the youths these days are not very capable, but their ambitions are higher than the sky. They are afraid that others will take away their points. They do not know how to be down to earth and move forward step by step. That is the most important thing. Now, Ping Xingting already had more than 100 points. He was very pleased with himself and started giving pointers to the crowd. Wu Quan shook his head slightly and interrupted, "Let's not talk about this for now. Let's rehearse the formation from yesterday and prepare in advance." Chapter 503. When everyone heard Wu Quan's words, they immediately revealed expressions of relief. They quickly tossed Ping Xingting aside and said, "No problem, Captain." In yesterday's battle, Wu Quan's performance had already won the respect of this group of cultivators. After 1 hour, a white figure appeared on the Scarlet Sea. It was Xiao Chen returning. Ping Xingting immediately asked anxiously, "Xiao Chen, quickly tell us what's going on. My blood is already burning." Xiao Chen felt speechless and amused. He did not know what to say to this person. Xiao Chen took a deep breath and explained the situation he had investigated. Then, he said, "This is the situation. You can decide what to do." Xiao Chen's information was as detailed as before, allowing them to choose calmly. Wu Quan and Ping Xingting discussed for a while and decided to head west. He decided to walk towards the west. There were over 20 middle-level winged demons 2,500 m away from him. The winged demons were demons with wings on their backs. Their entire bodies were covered in a hard layer of skin. They were born with the ability to fly. The green layer of skin on their skin gave them a physical defense that humans did not have. Speed and defense were the winged demons' greatest strengths. However, their greatest weakness was their weak attacks. Even if they used their full power, they would not be able to deal any fatal damage to the group. Of course, it would be a different matter if they were struck in a vital spot. Dealing with the winged demons' speed was also a problem. After 7 or 8 minutes, the group saw the group of winged demons that Xiao Chen mentioned. They were 2 meters tall and were resting on the surface of the sea. They were currently fishing out some strange fish to eat. Ping Xingting had an excited expression on his face. He drew his saber, and a saber light flickered as he charged forward. However, Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes. Among the 20-odd winged demons, he discovered a winged demon with a long aura. It was as strong as a peak martial king. Earlier, Xiao Chen had only used his spiritual sense to scan the area. He had not discovered this hidden winged demon. If they were careless, they would be in trouble. When the winged demons discovered Wu Quan and the others, they stopped eating. They revealed ferocious gazes and flapped their wings, arriving before the group at lightning speed. Dang! 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 Following Ping Xingting's excited roar, the intense battle officially began. The calm Scarlet Sea was immediately stirred up, splashing everywhere. The surface of the sea surged, kicking up huge waves. The group had already matured. They no longer panicked over the blood on their faces. Xiao! Xiao Chen's figure flashed, and he arrived before the winged demon that he paid special attention to. He threw a punch and stopped the winged demon from making a move. This winged demon was a bit shorter than the surrounding winged demons, however, its green cuticle was much darker. Its black eyes looked more distant too. Xiao Chen withdrew his fist and faced the winged demon in front of him. He revealed a faint smile on his delicate face and said, "Your opponent is me." Winged of. That winged demon sneered. It flapped the wide wings on its back and turned into a green light as it charged at Xiao Chen. Its speed had actually reached 3.5 times the speed of sound. Seeing the approaching winged demon, Xiao Chen's calm expression did not change at all. He stomped heavily on the Scarlet Sea. Xiao Chen clenched his fist and sent out a sharp fist wind, clashing with the winged demon. Bang! The winged demon laughed strangely and punched as well. A huge force knocked Xiao Chen back 100 meters. Xiao Chen pushed off the surface of the water and spun around a few times before he managed to dissipate the force. Who said that the attacks of the winged demon are weak? This winged demon is not weak at all. Although Xiao Chen had only used 30% of his strength in that earlier punch, it still contained 150 tons of force. Yet, he was knocked back like that. It looked like Xiao Chen was right. This was a strengthened winged demon. It was much stronger than the other middle-ranked winged demons. That winged demon was not completely unscathed. It was knocked back several dozen meters before it stabilized. Roar! The winged demon roared ferociously and charged at Xiao Chen again. Xiao Chen did not show any fear as he charged forward as well. However, he increased his strength to 40%. When the fists collided, there was a loud, dull sound. This time, no one moved back. Both sides were evenly matched. However, while the winged demon used its full strength, Xiao Chen only used 40%. When the winged demon's force entered his body, Xiao Chen circulated his essence and easily expelled it. However, the force that Xiao Chen sent into the winged demon's body made the winged demon feel extremely uncomfortable. Xiao! 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 The strengthened winged demon spread its wings. Knowing that Xiao Chen was not easy to deal with, it did not clash head-on. Instead, it flapped its wings and flew up. The winged demon controlled the air currents and shot at Xiao Chen like an arrow. It wanted to use its advantage in speed to harass Xiao Chen and obtain victory in the end. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. He could not be bothered to continue moving. He planted his feet on the water's surface and moved his fists continuously, clashing with the winged demon. If Xiao Chen did not use his essence, he would be faster than the winged demon when the winged demon moved at full speed. However, Xiao Chen's physical defense was much stronger than the winged demon's. When Xiao Chen landed a punch on the winged demon, it was equal to 10 punches from the winged demon. After exchanging more than 100 moves, the winged demon could not hold on any longer. It could not understand why this human's defense was stronger than its own. Xiao Chen looked at Wu Quan's side and discovered that the battle there was almost over. With everyone's perfect cooperation, the 20 ordinary middle-ranked winged demons did not pose much of a threat. There is no need to continue playing. Die! Xiao Chen's gaze suddenly turned cold as he raised the strength of his fist to 80%. Then, he punched at the winged demon. Bang! When Xiao Chen's fist landed on the winged demon's chest, there was a crisp sound. The winged demon's internal organs had all shattered. Its eyes immediately lost all luster. Hu Qi! The winged demon's body flew forward like a broken kite. Ping Xingteng, who had just dealt with a winged demon, looked at the winged demon flying over. His face lit up in joy as he laughed loudly. Good timing. Ping Xingteng stomped on the ground and swung his saber. A saber light flashed, and the winged demon's head flew off. When the others saw this scene, they could not help but be shocked. The winged demon's defense was extremely strong. When they chopped at it with real weapons, they could only leave a shallow wound. The neck was a vital point. Logically speaking, the winged demon's defense should be even stronger. How could Ping Xingting chop off the winged demon's head with one strike? Everyone could not understand. Speaking of which, Vice Captain, I only found out today that your saber is so sharp. I really underestimated you in the past. Ping Xingting also felt apprehensive in his heart. This is too easy. It feels like the winged demon flying over is dead, its defense is much weaker. However, Ping Xingting's expression did not change. He chuckled and said, "It is a piece of cake. A mere winged demon is not worth mentioning." Xiao Chen looked at the back of the jade pendant and saw an additional black dot. He thought to himself, this jade pendant is really miraculous. I just killed a winged demon with one punch, and a black dot appeared on the box. I wonder how this works. Speaking of which, Xiao Chen, you fought with that winged demon for so long. Why did you not draw your weapon? Another member of the team asked curiously when he saw the lunar shadow saber hanging from Xiao Chen's waist. Before Xiao Chen could reply, Ping Xingting quickly said, "Can you stop discouraging Xiao Chen? It is clear that Xiao Chen is embarrassed to draw his saber when he sees a peak blades man like me. Why are you still asking? Aren't you just deliberately discouraging him? You cannot be like this. Go do what you need to do. Don't disturb Xiao Chen." Ping Xingting walked over to Xiao Chen's side and consoled him, "Don't be discouraged. I had a similar experience with you in the past. I understand the grievances in your heart. Work hard, and one day, you will become a blades man like me." After Ping Xingting spoke, he patted Xiao Chen's shoulder twice to show his encouragement. However, right after Ping Xingting patted Xiao Chen's shoulder, his expression turned somewhat unnatural. He withdrew his right hand and hid it behind his back, trembling in pain. Ping Xingting asked in a quivering voice, "I say, Xiao Chen, what is the meaning of those two steel plates on your shoulders?" Steel plates? Xiao Chen could not react immediately. After thinking about it, he understood. When he clashed with the strengthened winged demon earlier, he had circulated the firmament body tempering art. Before he could disperse his body tempering art, a heaven-ranked body tempering cultivation technique would make every part of his body harder than steel. No wonder Ping Xingting said that. When Xiao Chen thought about it, he found it funny. This fellow could be considered a peak. After Ping Xingting dispersed his body tempering cultivation technique, he nodded helplessly and said, "I am too weak, so I can only do this." When Ping Xingting felt his swollen right hand, he cursed Xiao Chen in his heart. "Damn it, it is really painful." However, Ping Xingting could not find any excuse. He could only say depressingly, "In the future, don't place steel plates on your shoulders. What use is that? Not only can you not injure the enemy, you even injure your own people. No wonder your saber techniques have not improved at all. This is the weakness of your intelligence. It cannot be changed. You are destined to be an errand boy forever. Xiao Chen, come and split the loot." Wu Quan's voice rang out at an appropriate time. Xiao Chen ignored Ping Xingting's pestering. He quickly walked over and split the loot. After that, everything proceeded as usual. After resting for a while, Xiao Chen continued to search the periphery for suitable targets. After that, they swarmed over and attacked as a group. With Xiao Chen's extremely accurate information and the help he provided during the battle, the team moved very smoothly in the periphery. The team's points rose continuously. All the team members were very excited. At the same time, as they fought with the demons, they became more experienced. They were no longer the newbies that they were when they first arrived. This continued for 5 peaceful days. Suddenly, Ping Xingting suggested, "It is pointless to remain in the periphery. Wu Quan, let's go to the inner area. The demons there are stronger, and the value of the materials they have is higher." The smooth sailing of the past few days caused the other team members' confidence to soar. They all agreed, "Leader, let's go to the inner area. There is no point in staying in the periphery." "That's right. With our strength, staying in the periphery is too much of a waste. The human heart is never satisfied." Xiao Qin sighed to himself. This group of people overestimated him. Chapter 504. It was not that Xiao Qin wanted to discourage them. Without his secret help, this team would have struggled to survive in the periphery. Now, Xiao Qin was so ambitious that he wanted to go to the inner area. That was a place that only people of Bai Lishi's level could go. Wu Quan remained silent, not in a rush to answer. He looked at Xiao Qin and said, "Xiao Qin, what do you think? Can we go to the inner area?" Xiao Qin sighed softly and said, "When I went out to scout, I did not see any small perfection half-step martial monarchs returning in defeat." That was all Xiao Qin said. As for what to do, it would depend on Wu Quan and Ping Xingteng. Xiao Qin did not want to worry about this. Xiao Qian's purpose in joining this team was to make use of the time they fought the demons to observe the unique characteristics of the demons. Xiao Qin wanted to make full preparations for his future cultivation. He would have to leave sooner or later. Wu Quan pulled Ping Xingteng to the side and started to discuss in whispers. Clearly, he was very cautious about whether to go to the inner area or not. After 15 minutes, the discussion was over. Wu Quan walked over to Xiao Qin and said, "I have decided. We will go to the periphery of the inner area and take a look. If we cannot make it, we will still make it in time to retreat. I know that the inner area is very dangerous. Xiao Qin, I will not force you this time. If you are not willing, we can escort you safely to the outpost islets first." When Xiao Qin heard this, he smiled bitterly to himself. Since Wu Quan already said that, what else could he do? After coming to this world, Xiao Qin had seen too much mutual deception and betrayal. There were not many people like Wu Quan, who were truly righteous. To Xiao Qin relied on these people to obtain the information he wanted, and Xiao Qin helped them in secret. They did not owe each other anything. Whether they lived or died, it did not have much to do with Xiao Qin. He could just wash his hands of this matter. However, no matter what, the reason why these people were so confident was more or less related to Xiao Qin. It was difficult for Xiao Qin to wash his hands of this matter and let them die. This was especially so since Wu Quan treated him very well. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Qin smiled gently and said, "Very well, I agree to go to the periphery of the inner area and take a look. I will continue to help you gather information." Wu Quan revealed a smile, and the others heaved a sigh of relief. In their opinion, although Xiao Qin was not strong, his movement technique was indeed amazing. Without Xiao Qin in the team, they would definitely not be used to it. Ping Xingteng laughed loudly and said, "I knew that I would not misjudge you. Although your intelligence and saber techniques are not that great, I really like your temper. When we have time in the future, I will teach you some saber techniques." Is to do. After Ping Xingteng spoke, he was about to pat Xiao Qian's shoulder out of habit. However, he seemed to recall something. At the last moment, he withdrew his hand at lightning speed. After Ping Xingteng spoke, he was about to pat Xiao Qian's shoulder out of habit. However, he thought of something and withdrew his hand at the last moment. Ping Xingteng smiled embarrassedly and said, let's go. Same rules. Xiao Qin, you lead the way." Xiao Qin nodded to indicate that he understood. Under everyone's expectant gazes, he disappeared with a few flashes. Xiao Qin nodded to indicate that he understood. Then, under everyone's expectant gazes, he disappeared with a few flashes. Even from 5,000 kilometers away, one could still vaguely see a humanoid silhouette made of resentment in the whirlpool, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. There was an island below the whirlpool. That was the core of the third-grade battlefield. The Bloody Blades man, Sun Guangquan, was on that island, undergoing the final trial for his martial spirit. No one knew if he was dead or alive. The area within 8 to 9 kilometers of the island was the inner area of the third-grade battlefield. The closer one got to the island, the greater the danger. However, Wu Quan and the others only wanted to wander around the periphery of the inner area. For now, they had no intention of entering the inner area. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense turned into rings of light and recorded everything within 3 kilometers into his mind. Then, he easily avoided the demons in the periphery and carefully made his way to the periphery of the inner area. After a while, Xiao Chen stepped onto the boundary between the inner area and the periphery. The instant he stepped over, his spiritual sense picked up strong auras. Bang! 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 All sorts of shouts resounded in his mind. It was the sound of other cultivators fighting intensely. Xiao Chen hesitated for a while before he sent out his spiritual sense. All sorts of battle scenes entered his mind. Xiao Chen also gained a rough idea of the strength of these cultivators. After a while, Xiao Chen withdrew his spiritual sense. He muttered, "It is as I expected. The cultivators in the inner area are at least small perfection half-step martial monarchs. Otherwise, they are all teams of peak superior grade martial kings." In Wu Quan's team, only 2 people were peak superior grade martial kings. The rest were ordinary superior grade martial kings. This won't do. There are already 5 superior grade winged demons. Wu Quan cannot handle their defense, speed, and attacks. 10 superior grade shadow demons, this won't do either. 3 superior grade ghost race cultivators, this will be even worse. They will be wiped out in one exchange. After circling the periphery of the inner area, Xiao Chen searched for suitable prey. Then, he eliminated them one by one. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He discovered 2 lone high-ranked blood demons. These high-ranked blood demons were stronger than Wu Quan's and Ping Xingteng's. If Xiao Chen used his advantage in numbers and paid a price, he should be able to take them down. He could make them suffer a little without paying too much of a price. Given this, Xiao Chen just needed to understand his own strength and retreat in the face of difficulties. After that, Xiao Chen circled the area again. He carefully scanned the area with his spiritual sense, checking for other strong cultivators. This was to prevent unnecessary conflicts. The human heart of the battlefield was always more sinister than the demons. Fortunately, the nearest team is 5 kilometers away. After the battle, I should not have any interactions with this team. After making up his mind, Xiao Chen no longer hesitated. He soared into the air and returned the way he came. After 7 or 8 minutes, he appeared before Wu Quan and the others. Xiao Chen told Wu Quan and the others about what he saw in detail. Then, he waited for the other party's decision. Wu Quan muttered, "We can deal with 2 high-ranked blood demons. The demon core of a high-ranked blood demon is worth less than 10 times that of a middle-ranked blood demon. We can give it a try." The other team members also felt that they could give it a try. None of them had any objections. Ping Xingting's face was filled with excitement. He wished he could charge over immediately. "Let's move quickly, then. If we are late and the others snatch it away, there will be nothing left," Ping Xingting roared and immediately called Xiao Chen to lead the way. Along the way, under Xiao Chen's lead, nothing unexpected happened. The group traveled smoothly. They stopped behind a reef about a kilometer away from the 2 high-ranked blood demons. In terms of appearance, there wasn't much of a difference between the blood devils and humans, apart from the fact that they were slightly fairer. The 2 high-ranked blood demons looked around the Scarlet Sea, searching for humans they could deal with. Clearly, while the humans were hunting demons, the demons were hunting humans as well. When the blood demons' gazes landed on the reef, everyone felt a strange chill. Their arms trembled slightly. What a fellow! A high-ranked blood demon is indeed much stronger than a middle-ranked blood demon. Just that gaze alone is enough to make one's heart go cold, someone in the team muttered. Even the usually bold Ping Xingting calmed down. He did not charge forward rashly. After Wu Quan thought for a while, he said, Xingteng, each of us will lead 5 people and separate the 2 blood demons. We will not give them a chance to work together and end the battle quickly. Ping Xingteng nodded and said, that is all we can do. You and I have to attack together. After the 2 discussed who they wanted to bring, Wu Quan said to Xiao Chen, you should stay the same as before. Just roam around and ensure that you do not get attacked. Fight! Ping Xingteng and Wu Quan soared into the air at the same time and attacked the 2 blood demons at lightning speed. The moment the 2 moved, the high-ranked blood demons immediately felt their killing qi. They laughed strangely and attacked Ping Xingteng at the same time. A piercing red light appeared on their palms. One high-ranked blood demon blocked Ping Xingteng's saber light while the other sent a palm strike at Ping Xingteng's heart. The 2 blood demons ignored the attack from Wu Quan's gigantic sword. It looked like they were determined to kill Ping Xingteng in an instant, even if they got injured. Damn it! Do you really think this great me is a pushover? At the crucial moment of life and death, Ping Xingteng completely erupted. His saber light lit up again and knocked away the high-ranked blood demon blocking his saber. Bang! Wu Quan's gigantic sword immediately chopped the other blood demon's waist, leaving behind a bloody wound. The sword qi was like a pillar, pushing the blood demon back 2 steps. The attack aimed at Ping Xingteng's heart also shifted. It only left 5 claw marks on Ping Xingteng's shoulder, saving Ping Xingteng's life. The other team members behind Xiao Chen roared and quickly moved according to their original plan. The 6 people on each side split the 2 high-ranked blood demons. Xiao Chen did not make a move. He sat on the reef and watched. The recovery ability of a high-ranked blood demon was not something a middle-ranked blood demon could compare to. To them, it would only take them a few minutes to recover from such minor wounds. Demons were born with an advantage over humans in terms of their physical bodies. Every kind of demon had their own special characteristics that humans could not compare to. They could endure it. High-ranked blood demons were not so easy to deal with. Xiao Chen shook his head slightly and stopped thinking about it. The situation was as Xiao Chen expected. Although they successfully separated the 2 high-ranked blood demons, the battle was still very arduous. The final result was easy to predict. It would definitely be a miserable victory. That way, Xiao Chen would have achieved his goal. By relying on their strong recovery ability, the high-ranked blood demons did not fear the blood demons at all. The more they tired, the more wounds they suffered. Several people were caught off guard and sustained significant injuries. Bang! A blood demon opened a bloody hole in one of the team members' chests. This person flew towards Xiao Chen and sank into the Scarlet Sea. Xiao Chen waved his hand and pulled this person out. Then, he immediately pressed on a few vital acupoints to prevent further bleeding. Then, he took out some recuperation medicine and quickly treated this person. This person's face was pale, and his eyes were wide open. His horrified expression had yet to fade. In that instant, this person had truly felt death approaching. It was like he had just passed by the gates of hell. That kind of horror could not be described with words. Chapter 505. Bang! 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 A few more people were severely injured by the high-ranked blood demon. One of them was especially severely injured. The blood demon's sharp hand had already grasped the other party's heart. All it would take was a little more force to crush it. Fortunately, Wu Quan managed to save the other party in time. The instant the blood demon was about to succeed, Wu Quan chopped off the other party's head with his heavy sword. It was truly a critical moment. In the blink of an eye, someone had died. Xiao Chen had taken on the role of a medic. In the end, with one high-ranked blood demon dead, the remaining one would be easier to deal with. However, Ping Xingteng had been careless and allowed the other party to escape. Under such circumstances, no one dared to chase after the blood demon. They could only watch as the heavily injured blood demon fled. After this battle, Xiao Chen had gained a few points and a high-ranked demon core. That was a pretty good value. However, when compared to the price he had paid, he could not smile anymore. 5 people were heavily injured and could not fight for at least 3 days. The others were also injured to varying degrees. Aside from Xiao Chen, the others were all injured. They were both physically and mentally fatigued. They could only end the day like this. Wu Quan looked at the dispirited crowd and felt somewhat heavy in his heart. The price was too high. Xiao Chen was right. The inner area was not a place they could survive. Even the outer area was not good. The difference in strength was clear. Xingteng, dig out the demon core and leave this place quickly. This place is too dangerous. Go to the outpost islets. Wu Quan collected his thoughts and stopped blaming himself. He checked everyone's injuries and instructed Ping Xingteng. Ping Xingteng had an unsightly expression. He sighed and walked over to the high-ranked blood demon's corpse. As Xiao Chen was taking care of an injured person, he suddenly frowned. Someone was coming. The thing that he worried about the most had finally happened. Hee hee. We are really lucky today. The battle just ended, and we already picked up a fat sheep. Leave behind the high-ranked blood demon's corpse, and you can leave. Suddenly, a team of 7 or 8 people walked over from 100 meters in front. The leader was a middle-aged swordsman over 40 years old. He had a sinister gaze and a long and narrow face. A tyrannical aura spread out from this person's body. With this person's special support, the scarlet water on the surface of the sea rippled and spread out in all directions. As a swordsman, Wu Quan felt a strong pressure. He revealed a horrified expression. Unexpectedly, this person was a half-step martial monarch expert. At this moment, Ping Xingteng had just dug out a superior-grade demon core. He said angrily, "We spent a lot of effort to kill them. Do you think we will give them to you with just a word?" The swordsman's gaze turned cold. He sneered, "You want to negotiate with me? Very well. Not only do you have to hand over the high-quality monster core, you have to leave behind your space rings as well. Otherwise, none of you can leave." Kacha kacha. The people behind the swordsman immediately drew their weapons and looked at the crowd with hostile gazes. Everyone immediately tensed up. His eyes were filled with deep unwillingness. He really could not enter the inner area. Not only would he not be able to obtain the monster cores that he had painstakingly killed, now even the wealth that he had accumulated over the years would be taken away. "Hand it over, you." The swordsman took 2 steps forward and tried to grab the superior-grade demon core in Ping Xingteng's hand. Ping Xingteng cursed, "Screw off. I nearly died to obtain this. It would be strange if I gave it to you." Ping Xingteng withdrew his hand and drew his saber. A saber light soared into the sky and hacked at the swordsman. "You overestimate yourself." The swordsman shouted angrily when he saw the ignorant Ping Xingteng. He stomped heavily on the Scarlet Sea, and the surface of the sea surged up. Ping Xingteng could not stand stably due to the surging waves. His saber light deviated and struck the swordsman's left, kicking up a huge scarlet wave. Xiao! A bright light flashed in the middle of the scarlet water. The swordsman had drawn his sword. The sword light tore through the scarlet water and flicked gently, knocking away Ping Xingteng's saber. The sword trembled and a drawn-out sword hum resounded. When the sword light spat out, the scarlet water in the air split in half. Then, the sword pierced towards Ping Xingteng's chest. Fast, accurate, and ruthless. Dang! Wu Quan's figure flashed forward and knocked Ping Xingteng aside. Then, he held his heavy sword horizontally in front of him, helping to block this sword strike. A surging sword chi came from the sword, causing Wu Quan's internal organs to churn. He felt something sweet in his throat, and he nearly vomited a mouthful of hot blood. Wu Quan forcefully suppressed his hot-bloodedness and said indifferently, "Senior, you can take the superior-grade demon core and I will give you 1,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Can you let us leave first? Who do you think you are to negotiate with me? If you are not strong enough, don't come to the inner area." The swordsman snorted coldly and pressed his sword forward. A huge force came, and Wu Quan could no longer block it. He vomited a mouthful of blood and flew back. Logically speaking, there was indeed a gap between Wu Quan and this swordsman. However, the gap was not that big. Xiao Qin had exhausted his essence and had not recovered from his internal injuries. Hence, he was easily defeated by the swordsman in 2 moves. Pa! A gentle force landed on Wu Quan's back, neutralizing all the force in his body. Then, he landed firmly on the water. Xiao Qin had made a move. When Wu Quan landed on the water, he looked at Xiao Qin and said, "Your movement technique is good. Don't bother about us. Leave by yourself." Xiao Qin shook his head slightly and took out a medicinal pill for Wu Quan. Then, he raised his hand and sent Wu Quan to the reef. Wu Quan was horrified to discover that the force from Xiao Qin was so strong that he could not resist at all. Ping Xingteng, who had picked up his saber, looked at the approaching Xiao Qin. His eyes were filled with shock. "Xiao Qin, why aren't you running? Why are you sending yourself to death? With that saber technique of yours, don't embarrass yourself." Scram! Ping Xingteng was speechless. He thought to himself, there must be something wrong with this fellow's intelligence. Since his movement technique is so good, why is he still here? However, what surprised Ping Xingteng was that the swordsman in front did not make a move immediately. When he saw Xiao Qin slowly walking over, his expression turned grave. Ping Xingteng seemed to hear the hum of a saber in the other party's eyes. When he used his essence, he was startled. Xiao Qin was clearly only a peak medial grade martial king. However, the purity and breadth of his essence seemed to be stronger than Ping Xingteng's. There was only one explanation. This youth could be a genius disciple of a super sect. He had used countless natural treasures and cultivated the peak earth-ranked cultivation technique, or even higher. "Might I ask, little brother, what is your name and which sect you are from?" The swordsman decided to ask around first. If Xiao Qin was a genius disciple of a super sect, even if Xiao Qin could defeat him, it would not be worth it to offend the power behind him. Xiao Qin's expression remained calm. However, at some point in time, his right hand was already on the hilt of the lunar shadow saber hanging at his waist. Xiao Qin replied indifferently, "Brat, Xiao Qin, you are not from a sect. If you are not satisfied, you will have to pay a price. You can take this superior grade demon core. However, don't have any other ideas." A faint smile appeared on the swordsman's face. Since Xiao Qin is not from a sect, it is easy to deal with him. However, I have to test him first. So, he made a gesture with his left hand behind his back. "You are just a medial grade martial king. What qualifications do you have to negotiate with our boss?" One of the swordsman's subordinates immediately understood. He grasped his saber tightly and released a sharp saber light. Then, he took a step forward and hacked down at Xiao Qin's head. Xiao Qin smiled coldly to himself. When he used his spiritual sense to scan the swordsman, he had already seen through all of his opponent's tricks. Xiao Qin's right hand, which was on the hilt of his saber, drew it out by 1 centimeter. Wang! The saber hummed and an unparalleled saber intent poured out wantonly. The swordsman's opponent's sharp saber trembled continuously under the influence of this inextinguishable saber intent. That swordsman was horrified to discover that he could no longer control the saber in his hand. That swordsman quickly stopped and grasped the saber hilt with both hands. However, it was all for naught. There was another melodious saber hum and that saber flew out of his hand, flying into the air. The long sabers in the hands of the other people were immediately drawn into the air by the saber intent and started to spin non-stop. The smile on the swordsman's face froze. Shock filled his eyes as he said in astonishment, "Saber intent." He comprehended saber intent at such a young age. How is this possible? Ka-cie. There was a crisp sound and the saber that Xiao Qin had drawn out by 1 centimeter returned to its scabbard. The weapons that were flying in the air immediately fell into the sea, splashing up blood as they sank. Xiao Chen had used only half a move to defeat his opponent's sudden attack. The appearance of his saber intent shocked everyone present. Ping Xingting could not believe his eyes. He rubbed them hard and discovered that everything was real. That white-robed youth who had not drawn his saber all this while had not only exquisite saber techniques, but they had also materialized Ping Xingting's carelessness. Ping Xingting was far superior to Ping Xingting. Ping Xingting thought back to his shameless boasting about teaching Xiao Chen how to use the saber. Now that he thought about it, there was nothing more stupid than that. It was not that Xiao Chen's intelligence was lacking. Rather, it was that Ping Xingting's intelligence was lacking. Just thinking about it made him feel like an idiot. Suddenly, Ping Xingting startled awake. His saber had fallen into the sea. If he did not pick it up now, he would not be able to. Ping Xingting quickly stuck his hand into the water and used his essence to fiddle with it. That saber had been with him for many years. It was his second life, he could not lose it. Ping Xingting relied on the subtle connection he had with the saber over the years to pull it up. However, before he could rejoice, he cried out in pain. It turned out that Ping Xingting's fiddling had attracted some of the strange fish in the sea. They swam over with the saber and bit off a few pieces of flesh on his arm. The pain was heart-wrenching. However, no one noticed Ping Xingting at this moment. No one had seen this embarrassing thing. The swordsman calmed down. A cultivator with saber intent and a storage of essence that was no weaker than his was already capable of fighting him. Xiao Chen's chances of victory were only 50-50. Let's go. The swordsman put away the superior grade demon core and snorted coldly. Then, he turned around and left. Xiao. However, the swordsman had only taken half a step when he drew his sword. Then, he spun around and swung his sword upwards, sending a sharp light at Xiao Chen's neck. Chapter 506. Xiao Chen had never let down his guard against this swordsman. Xiao Chen had observed every move the swordsman made. This little trick would only be asking for trouble. Xiao Chen drew his saber at lightning speed, moving like a silver snake. When the swordsman turned around, he discovered a pitch-black saber pressed against his neck. It was like the swordsman had turned around and handed his neck over. However, his sword was still about a meter away from Xiao Chen's neck. Xiao Chen pressed the lunar shadow saber against the swordsman's neck and said coldly, "Don't try to play tricks with me. You are just a small perfection half-step martial monarch. You are not strong enough in my eyes." Scram! The final word, scram, was like a clap of thunder in the swordsman's ears. Xiao Chen instantly thrust his saber forward and cut the swordsman's skin. The swordsman was horrified. In that instant, he thought he was going to die. "I'll scram. I'll scram. I'll scram." The situation was not in his favor. The swordsman put away his weapon and led his subordinates to flee in a sorry state. He no longer dared to harbor any more thoughts. When Wu Quan and the others saw Xiao Chen scare off the swordsman, the shock in their eyes was indescribable. They had not expected an expert to be hiding beside them. Wu Quan got up from the reef and walked over to Xiao Chen. He had a complicated gaze as he said, "Xiao Chen, what are you trying to do by following us?" Xiao Chen said calmly, "Don't overthink this. I have my own goals, but I have never thought of harming you. However, it looks like I will not be able to accomplish it now. Let's not talk about anything else. I'll send you back to the outpost islets first." Xiao Chen's original plan was to use this group of people to figure out the characteristics of the various demons and make preparations for his own experiential training. Right now, he had only figured out most of them. There were still a few rare demon races that he had not met. Now that this happened, Xiao Chen could only put an end to his plan and act alone. That would be much more troublesome. Along the way, Xiao Chen remained silent. The others were still fine. Although they were shocked at Xiao Chen's strength, they did not feel uncomfortable. As for Ping Xingteng, he felt incredibly embarrassed. Normally, he was the most talkative. However, at this moment, he did not dare to say anything. He felt very uncomfortable walking on the water. He glanced at Xiao Chen from time to time, and his heart was filled with complicated feelings. The 3 outpost islets appeared in everyone's vision. Xiao Chen stopped and said, "I will send you off here. Goodbye. Don't ever go to the inner area again." I really didn't expect that Xiao Chen, who usually doesn't reveal himself, would actually be such an expert. In the past, I had a feeling that he had secretly helped me before. However, I felt that his strength was too low, and I was just overthinking things. Now, it seems that it was true. I really don't know why this person is following us. I really can't figure it out. Hee, how can we guess the thoughts of experts? Don't even think about it. As the team members watched Xiao Chen leave, they began to discuss in low voices. Their words were filled with puzzlement. Wu Quan patted Ping Xingteng's shoulder and said, "Xingteng, he has already left. Don't just stand there and watch." Ping Xingteng said depressedly, "Don't call me Xingteng. Damn it. I really embarrassed myself this time. How am I to face others in the future?" Night fell. The sky was pitch black, one could not even see their fingers when they stretched out their hands. Suddenly, a wooden coffin rose from the Scarlet Sea. Pa! The coffin door landed on the water, and the scarred man from the dark church walked out with a hazy expression. He looked around and muttered, "I finally arrived at the deep sea battlefield." This scarred man had been paying close attention to Xiao Chen. He wanted to make a move the moment Xiao Chen left the city and obtain the major fiend essence core as soon as possible. However, Xiao Chen had been with Bai Lishi the entire time. If the two worked together, the scarred man was not confident of victory. So he could only wait for an opportunity to make a move. This wait lasted until now. The Divine Dragon Palace hated demons very much, so the scarred man had put in a lot of effort to get here. However, at this moment, the scarred man felt more relaxed. I am really going to die. Unexpectedly, I came to the deep sea battlefield. Now that I am here, even if the two of you work together, I can easily defeat you. The scarred man looked around and verified his position. Then, he returned to the wooden coffin. The coffin lid closed automatically, and the wooden coffin slowly sank into the Scarlet Sea. At this moment, Xiao Chen was bitterly testing out the strength of the remaining demons. He did not know that an unknown strong enemy was targeting him. A middle-ranked ghost race corpse lay quietly on the calm Scarlet Sea. Like humans, the ghost race walked on 4 legs. However, its head was that of a monster. Xiao Chen could not describe what it looked like. It was similar to the evil spirits in the Buddhist underworld of his previous life. However, it was not as malevolent. Xiao Chen was alone. It was no longer as convenient to move around. The demons moved in groups. There were at least 2 of them. Fortunately, Xiao Chen was very familiar with the life bestowal spell now. It was not difficult to use it to lure the other party away. However, it still took much longer than before. The ghost race has the word ghost in their name. However, their strength is not due to their strangeness. Instead, they use their mental energy to create illusions to deal with their enemies. Fortunately, Xiao Chen's spiritual sense was incredibly strong. He did not feel much about illusions of this level. He focused his gaze and shot it out, easily breaking the other party's illusions like a saber. There are still 3 more types of demons to check. After I check them all out, it will be time to go to the inner area. Xiao Chen looked away from the ghost race corpse as he muttered to himself. In terms of individual strength, none of the demonic beasts in the outer area could last more than 10 moves against Xiao Chen. At best, they would only give him some trouble in numbers. Xiao Chen would not be able to achieve the purpose of this experiential training. There was no chance of experiencing the feeling of life and death. However, Xiao Chen was not so arrogant as to charge into the inner area. If he ran into some strange demons, he might not even know how he died. Hence, Xiaochen needed to seriously understand the various strengths of the demons in the outer area, knowing himself as well as the enemy. At that time, when Xiaochen entered the inner area and faced the mysterious demons, he would not panic. He would be able to face them calmly and would not die carelessly. There was no wind or rain in the Scarlet Sea. Sunlight could not shine down either. This place was dark all year round. Berserk Dragon Fist. A dragon head appeared on Xiaochen's fist, and a huge force burst out. Xiaochen directly hammered a low-ranked ice demon to death, severely injuring it. Xiaochen spread out his fingers and formed a claw. A resonant dragon image resounded, and a realistic azure-colored dragon claw appeared from nowhere. Xiaochen stretched out his hand and tore another ice demon into 5 pieces. An invisible red light immediately appeared on the ice demon's corpse and flew into Xiaochen's forehead. The severely injured ice demon on the surface of the sea crawled to its feet with a horrified expression. Then, it quickly fled. Xiaochen's expression did not change as he watched the fleeing ice demon. He did not give chase immediately. Xiaochen clenched his right hand tightly and circulated his vital qi to execute the second move of the dragon claw fist, burning the heavens. He felt like his vital qi was burning. Xiaochen's entire body felt incredibly hot. An azure-colored energy flowed from his dantian to the Chanzhong acupoint on his chest. Finally, it rushed out of the Baihui acupoint on his head and soared into the sky. The pitch-black clouds above his head suddenly began to churn. Waves of cyan energy began to burn in the clouds. It was as if the entire sky was on fire. Burning the heavens fist. Xiaochen shouted ferociously and punched. The burning clouds above quickly gathered and formed a dragon fist descending from the sky. Bang! The dragon fist instantly struck the fleeing ice demon, shattering it into countless pieces of ice and falling into the Scarlet Sea. Xiaochen withdrew his fist and stopped circulating his energy. The clouds above immediately returned to normal, becoming as dark as ink. What a horrifying punch! This punch actually relies on burning vital qi. The more vital qi I burn, the stronger it is. I wonder how strong it will be after I burn all my vital qi. While Xiaochen was scouting out the strength of the demons, he also started practicing the Dragon Claw Fist. The Dragon Claw Fist had a total of 4 moves and 8 moves: Berserk Dragon, burning the heavens, breaking the armor, and seizing the heart. With Xiaochen's current cultivation of the firmament body tempering art's 5th layer, he should be able to finish practicing it. Hence, he planned to finish practicing this fist technique before he entered the inner area. This would be a good foundation for his own experiential training. At that time, he would be even more confident. Ta! 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 Xiaochen walked over to the ice demon's corpse. There were still 2 demon cores that he had not dug out. He could not waste them. The ice demons were even rarer than the ghost race. Furthermore, they were all low-ranked ice demons. Xiaochen could not see any middle-ranked ice demons. The ice demons were made of white crystals and could naturally control ice-attributed spiritual energy. In this Scarlet Sea, there was an endless supply of water-attributed spiritual energy for the ice demons to use. Dealing with them was very troublesome. Even Xiaochen did not dare to be careless. He could only lure over 2 ice demons at a time. If he lured over 1 more, he would have to spend a lot of effort. Xiaochen placed the demon cores in the universe ring and muttered, "There are still 3 types of demons that I have not met. I will have to spend more time on them." The remaining 3 types of demons were the fire demons, iron demons, and eros demons. They were rather rare. Xiaochen had only seen some of them from afar. Furthermore, they were very mobile. They were not easy to find. However, no matter how difficult it was, Xiaochen had to find them. Otherwise, if he went to the inner area alone and met higher-ranked demons, he would be in a passive position. Time passed, and 1 month passed just like that. The last 2 moves of the Dragon Claw Fist were breaking the armor and seizing the heart. Xiao Qin had already completely learned them. All that was left was to slowly perfect them in actual combat. As for the remaining 3 types of demons, Xiao Qin had not found any of them. This made him somewhat depressed. Every day, he could only hunt some other demons. However, his points had increased significantly. There were already more than 100 black dots on the back of the jade pendant. That meant he could exchange for more than 100 points. On this day, the Scarlet Sea was as calm as usual. There were no ripples at all. Xiao Qin flew quickly on the surface of the water. He used his spiritual sense to scan the surroundings continuously, recording every movement in his mind. Ah! Just at this moment, there was a miserable cry. Xiao Qin frowned. That miserable cry sounded very real. It was clearly the cry of a human. On the battlefield, humans hunted demons and demons hunted humans. In this boundless Scarlet Sea, there were cultivators dying every day. In the past month, Xiao Qin had already seen too much. If there was no danger, he would lend a hand. Chapter 507. If they were too far away or there were too many demons, Xiao Qin would not be able to do anything to them. He could not risk his life for the sake of saving others. No matter who stepped onto the battlefield, they had already put their lives on the line. No one could save them. Only their own strength was real. Xiao Qin scanned the area with his spiritual sense and frowned slightly. Then, he stopped moving forward. 3 kilometers to the north, there was a small team of 10 fighting 20-odd middle-ranked winged demons. This team was stronger than Wu Quan's team. Logically speaking, they should not have any problems dealing with 20-odd winged demons. However, there was actually a low-ranked iron demon hidden in that group of winged demons. Its entire body was like metal, reflecting a faint glow in the Scarlet Sea. When the weapons struck the iron demon, they gave off crisp sounds. That iron demon laughed loudly as if nothing had happened to it. The human team was thrown into chaos. Using the iron demon as a shield, the 20-odd winged demons mercilessly reaped the lives of the small team of 10. This is strange. This is the first time I saw 2 different kinds of demons hunting together. If I deal with the iron demon, this group of people might have a chance to turn the tables. Xiao Qin went over to take a look. After thinking for a while, he came up with an idea. He executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art and quickly flew over. In the time it took to brew a pot of tea, Xiao Qin had already flown 3 kilometers away. Someone is coming. When the small team, which was bitterly holding on, saw Xiao Qin, they immediately rejoiced. However, when they got close and saw that Xiao Qin was alone and that he was only a medial-grade martial king, their smiles froze. The team leader had a gloomy expression. He hesitated for a while but did not warn Xiao Qin to leave. The other team members did not say anything either. After all, they were going to die soon. It would not be bad to drag another person down with them. Humans would never understand the hearts of humans. When the winged demons in the air saw Xiao Qin, they laughed sinisterly. Ga. Ga. Another reckless thing is coming. Hu Qi. 2 winged demons flapped their green wings and dove towards Xiao Qin while thrusting their sharp claws towards Xiao Qin's forehead. His speed was incomparably fast, like a sharp arrow flying in the air, emitting sharp whistles as he tore through the air. The winged demons were fast, but Xiao Qin was even faster. The blood flame shoes pushed off the water, and Xiao Qin moved in a purple arc, arriving at the winged demon's side. Berserk Dragon Fist. The dragon's head appeared and it roared furiously. A ferocious force exploded forth. The punch directly landed on the winged devil's head, causing a pool of blood to splatter. The winged devil's head exploded. This was a weakness that Xiao Qin had discovered while fighting with the winged demons. The winged demon's entire body was covered in a hard layer of skin. Only the head was lacking. This was also the weakest spot of the winged demons. Berserk Dragon Claw. After exploding the winged demon's head with one punch, Xiao Chen's left hand turned into a claw and condensed into a realistic dragon claw. Then, when the other middle-ranked winged demon turned around, Xiao Chen did not hesitate to crush its head. Xiao Chen easily killed 2 winged demons with one punch and one claw. The leader of the winged demons immediately panicked. It quickly commanded 5 or 6 middle-ranked winged demons to charge at Xiao Chen. Berserk Dragon Break! Xiao Chen shouted, and the dragon's head on his right hand and the dragon's claw on his left quickly merged, forming a complete blue dragon circling around Xiao Chen. When Xiao Chen punched, the blue dragon roared ferociously. It severely injured the 6 middle-ranked winged demons that were flying over, causing them to fall into the Scarlet Sea. How powerful! This person is a genius cultivator. We are saved. The trapped team revealed joyful smiles. Genius cultivators could not be measured by the standards of ordinary people. They were all demonic geniuses that could fight above their cultivation realms, 1 in 10,000. The green face of the winged demon leader tensed up. He quickly ordered the iron demons below to block Xiao Chen and wait for them to finish harvesting before dealing with this team. The iron demon with a metallic glow all over its body laughed strangely. It moved like a train on the surface of the water as it charged at Xiao Chen. A 6-meter-tall scarlet wave appeared behind it. Xiao Chen wanted to test the iron demon's defense. He did not dodge, instead sending out a berserk dragon fist. Bang! The dragon's head struck the iron demon's chest and gave off a dull sound. The azure light scattered, and Xiao Chen felt his arm go numb. However, the low-ranked iron demon laughed loudly as though nothing had happened. Then, it kicked Xiao Chen's chest. The low-ranked iron demon's kick was very fast, almost as fast as Xiao Chen's attack. Xiao Chen could not dodge completely, so he could only lean back to lessen the force of the kick. Bang! When the metal-like foot landed on Xiao Chen's chest, he immediately felt pain. It was like a hammer had smashed into his chest. However, it was only pain. That kick did not contain any vital qi or essence, so the force could not be transmitted into his body. Xiao Chen suddenly understood. This iron demon's body was as hard as the 1,000 Mountains frost iron, nearly invulnerable to weapons. It was like a piece of metal, but it did not have much strength. It was very painful to hit someone, but it would not cause any fatal damage. This probably explained why the iron demon would mingle with the other demons. They did not have much offensive power on their own. The iron demon laughed loudly and leaped at Xiao Chen. There was no technique at all, its entire body was full of openings. Bang! 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 Xiao Chen's fists rained down on the iron demon's body like a storm. Dull sounds rang out continuously as he increased his strength. Xiao Chen only managed to leave a shallow dent on the iron demon's body when he increased his strength to 250,000 kilograms. However, no matter what, Xiao Chen's hands were made of flesh and blood. Now, it was incredibly painful. This was especially so for the last 250,000 kilograms punch. Xiao Chen felt like his bones were about to crack. Just thinking about it made him feel stupid. It was like an ordinary person using their fists to punch a piece of metal, crying out in pain. If that was not stupid, what was? Xiao Chen's current situation was similar. The iron demon's metallic face remained unaffected. When it saw that Xiao Chen was tired, it quickly kicked again. Bang! The iron demon kicked Xiao Chen's chest again. Using the force of this kick, Xiao Chen retreated a few steps. He looked at the iron demon, who did not feel any pain. A guess appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. Perhaps the iron demon was born without feeling pain, no matter how strong its defense was. After using such a huge force, the iron demon should have felt something. It was impossible for the iron demon to not even frown. This did not make sense. I should test this out and see if my guess is right. With a thought, Xiao Chen quickly circulated the Dragon Claw Fist's third move, Breaking Armor. Xiao Chen's vital qi spiraled rapidly in his body, flowing through his bones and into his fist. Qi! Qi! Immediately, a cone-shaped, azure-colored, spiraling qi formed on his fist. As the name implied, the breaking armor fist specialized in dealing with those with extremely tough defenses. Bang! A series of violent sounds rang out. The punch was like a blade that was as fast as the wind, cutting a large hole in the chest of the Iron Demon that was pouncing over. However, the Iron Demon's expression did not change. It continued to advance towards Xiao Chen, showing no signs of stopping. Indeed, it really does not feel any pain. Breaking armor, claw. Xiao Chen opened his right hand and formed a claw. Spiraling qi gathered on his fingertips, forming 5 sharp claws. Xiao Chen waved his hand and his 5 fingers sank deep into the Iron Demon's shoulder. Then, he quickly turned his body to the side and pulled with his right hand. The Iron Demon's entire right arm fell off. Then, Xiao Chen casually tossed the Iron Demon's arm into the sea. When he saw the Iron Demon charging at him, he frowned slightly. Still not dead? Breaking armor fist. Xiao Chen had already obtained the information he wanted from the Iron Demon. So, he did not hold back. He directly used his speed to his advantage. Xiao Chen used the breaking armor fist and claw to break the Iron Demon in half. Only then did the Iron Demon die. Xiao Chen could not help but sigh. This Iron Demon's life force was too strong. Its defense was ridiculously strong as well. Furthermore, it did not feel pain. The Iron Demon was a race that was born to be the shield and the vanguard. If a huge battle broke out and rows of Iron Demons charged over without any regard for their lives, the scene would be terrifying. After dealing with the Iron Demon, Xiao Chen looked at the situation of the team in front. They had not taken a turn for the better. They could only barely block the attacks of the winged demons. It looked like the harassment from the Iron Demons earlier was too severe. Burning the heavens. Xiao Chen shouted and the vital qi in his body quickly burned. An azure qi rushed into the sky and the dark clouds churned. Xiao Chen punched and the churning clouds in the sky turned into a dragon fist. When it descended, it killed 2 winged demons and blood splattered everywhere. Xiao Chen did not stop punching. He punched 6 times in a row and instantly killed 10 odd winged demons. The other winged demons fled in all directions. Xiao Chen withdrew his fist and stood upright. The fiery clouds in the sky immediately scattered. When the team members saw Xiao Chen drifting away, they were simply startled. Genius cultivators, we are indeed different. With just a few punches and kicks, we defeated these low-ranked demons. The team leader sighed. Then, he thought of his despicable thoughts and could not help but feel ashamed. Xiao Chen had come to save him. However, he had not thought of warning him. Instead, he had thought of something along the lines of dying together. Now, he had another scapegoat. Let's rest up. We cannot stay here any longer. We have to rush back to the outpost islets. The team leader sighed and called out to the team. Qi! Qi! Right at this moment, a wooden coffin suddenly emerged from the pool of blood. This strange scene caused the team members to jump in fright. Pa! The coffin lid landed on the water and splashed up a scarlet wave. The scarred man, Wu Yang, walked out with a sullen expression. He looked around and frowned. Strange, I clearly sensed his scent. Why did it disappear so quickly? When the scarred man saw the team member beside him, who did not even dare to breathe loudly, he stretched his hand and pulled the team leader over. Then, he lifted up the team leader's collar. The scarred man's gaze turned sullen as he asked in a hoarse voice, "Did you see a white-robed bladesman? Which direction did he go? Answer me honestly. Otherwise, I will make you wish you were dead." When the scarred man felt the other party's strong aura, the team leader nodded vigorously. He said hurriedly, I saw him heading north. He moved very fast. He should be 6 kilometers away by now. Everything I said is true. Don't kill me. Chapter 508. The scarred man smiled coldly and sent out a slap, turning the other party's head around. Foolish. Everyone who sees me has to die. What does it matter if you say it or not? Quick, run. The rest of the people panicked and ran in all directions. The scarred man smiled and said, "You think you can run?" The scarred man quickly formed hand seals with both hands. When he completed the last hand seal, he smashed his right palm on the Scarlet Sea within a kilometer of him. 10 wooden coffins rose from the Scarlet Sea and formed a circle. The wooden coffins opened, and 10 demonic corpses leaped out, launching themselves at the remaining people. The scarred man ignored the miserable cries of the crowd and looked into the distance. He had an impatient expression on his face. That brat managed to escape again. I wonder when I can catch him again. In the following days, Xiaoqin searched the entire periphery of the battlefield. Furthermore, he swept through the place back and forth. In the end, his hard work paid off. Xiaoqin managed to find the fire demon. The fire demon was completely red, and there was a clump of flames on its head. When Xiaoqin rushed over, an inferior-grade fire demon was cleaning up the battlefield. There were a few human corpses floating on the surface of the water. The hearts of the corpses had been dug out. It was a cruel sight. The fire demon squatted on the water, dissecting a female corpse. Xiaoqian's gaze turned cold. No matter how sinister the human heart was, it would not do such a cruel thing. Furthermore, the demons treated humans as their food, not having any qualms about killing them. The fire demon wiped off the blood from the corner of its lips and got up to look at Xiaoqin. It laughed and said, "It has been a long time since someone took the initiative to seek trouble for me. Don't you know that the fire demon race has the strongest offensive power among all the demon races?" Xiaoqin looked at the corpses floating on the water. This fire demon had easily killed a small team by himself. Without needing to know, Xiaoqin could guess how strong it was. The fire demon stared at Xiaoqin. When the fire demon focused on Xiaoqin, something seemed to move quickly in the air. Xiaoqin felt that something was wrong. A fierce flame started to burn in his right eye. The flame that the fire demon released was a yin flame. The purple thunder true fire should be able to restrain it. Hee, the eye contact game is over. Human, you can die now. The fire demon let out a strange laugh and the surrounding fire-attributed spiritual energy suddenly moved. Countless dense sparks appeared and gathered towards Xiaoqian's body. Boom! In an instant, Xiaoqian's body was engulfed in raging flames. The blood under his feet boiled and wisps of hot air quickly rushed to the top of his head. Fire-attributed spiritual energy filled the world. Wherever there was air, there would be fire-attributed spiritual energy. As long as one was within the fire demon's line of sight, there was no way to avoid this move. Xiaoqian's eyes were fixed on the fire demon. He had already sensed the movement of the fire attribute spiritual qi in the air. However, Xiaoqin did not expect the fire demon's move to be so strange. There was no way to dodge it. No matter how he flew up and down in the sky, he could not dodge it. This was because the fire-attributed spiritual energy in the air was already controlled by the fire demon. No matter how one ran, one's body would always be in the air. Unless one could hide in the air and completely avoid the air, one would not be able to escape. Amidst the raging flames, an essence barrier separated Xiaoqin from the flames. The flames clung to the essence barrier and burned continuously. Xiaoqian's essence drained continuously. He needed to maintain the essence barrier. Otherwise, if the flames touched his body, even if he had a body of steel, he would still be burned to a pile of scraps. Boom! The situation was dire. Under the fire demon's control, the surrounding fire-attributed spiritual energy flew towards Xiaoqin like motes of stars. In just 7 or 8 minutes, Xiaoqin had exhausted about a third of his essence. The fire demon could continuously use the fire-attributed spiritual energy in the air. Furthermore, no matter how much essence Xiaochen had in his body, there would come a time when it would all be used up. The fire demon appeared to be very patient. He revealed a cruel smile on his red face. The flames on his head danced continuously. If one looked carefully, they would discover that the flames were shrinking at an extremely slow rate. The fire demon's eyes controlled the fire-attributed spiritual energy in the air and gathered it towards Xiaochen. The fire demon had already made up his mind to exhaust Xiaochen to death. The light of the flames penetrated the essence barrier and shone on Xiaochen's delicate face. Xiaochen's eyes were very deep, no one could guess what he was thinking. The surrounding seawater churned. Under the blazing flames, the sea of blood emitted countless flickering red steam that drifted far into the sky. The flames surged, but Xiaochen did not panic. If he wanted to leave, the divine weapon in his universe ring could help him break out of this situation. However, he had not reached that point yet. Xiaochen gently tapped the essence barrier with his finger and tore a small hole. A strand of flame immediately shot out. The hole closed and Xiaochen controlled the strand of flame on his palm. Then, he placed it in front of his eyes and observed it carefully. As the flame danced on his palm, Xiaochen felt a chill spread out. He entered deep thought. The fire-attributed spiritual energy of the natural world did not differentiate between yin and yang. It was the purest, most primitive flame. Only the user could change its attribute. The fire demon's flames were classified as yin flames. The flames he controlled changed their attribute, becoming yin flames. Furthermore, there were too many of them, resulting in the yin flames being of very low grade. They were much weaker than the extreme yin flame of the holy fire manner. Compared to the lunar true flame in Xiaochen's sea of consciousness, it was not even worth mentioning. After he casually extinguished this flame, Xiaochen already had an idea. He gently tore off the blue strip of cloth on his forehead. The scarlet throne mark flickered, and the lunar true flame floated out from his forehead. Xiaochen sat cross-legged on the surface of the sea. With a thought, the egg-sized lunar true flame floated above his head. Break! With a light shout, countless densely packed holes appeared on the Yuan Qi barrier, and traces of flames impatiently shot in. The lunar true flame slowly spun around and absorbed all the incoming flames. Then, it slowly swallowed them up. The two were on completely different levels. When the incoming flames came in contact with the pale white lunar true flame, they were instantly assimilated. Time passed slowly. The leaping flame above the fire demon's head had already shrunk by half. However, the fire demon could still sense Xiaochen's life force flourishing. How can it be like this? Given a human's cultivation, even if he is a half-step martial monarch, his essence should have been drained long ago. The fire demon felt that something was wrong. He revealed heavy doubt in his eyes. He did not know what had happened. I cannot exhaust too much of my origin flame. I will wait for another 7 or 8 minutes. Whether he is dead or alive, I have to go and check. After 7 or 8 minutes, everything returned to normal. As the fierce flames burned, an overwhelming blood mist dyed the dark clouds above red. However, Xiaochen's life force was still flourishing amidst the flames. The flames above Xiaochen's head drained once more. A murderous intent flashed on the fire demon's face. He closed his eyes, and the flames around Xiaochen slowly vanished. When the flames vanished completely, the fire demon saw a scene that made him want to vomit blood. Xiaochen sat cross-legged on the scarlet sea with his eyes closed. The pale white flame above his head refined the flames that it had absorbed. Many thanks for your yin flame. Xiaochen opened his eyes and revealed a faint smile. The size of the lunar true flame did not change much. However, the rice grain-sized origin flame in it had grown larger, benefiting significantly from it. Fire Demon Hung's face was filled with endless fury as he screamed, "Damned human! You are actually using my flame origin essence to cultivate. Watch as I cut open your skull and take out your flame origin essence." Xiao. The lunar true flame returned to Xiao Chen's forehead. Then, he stood up and said indifferently, "Do you think you can do that?" The fire demon did not waste any more words. The flames above his head leaped wildly. The surrounding temperature seemed to rise significantly as he waved his hand. A flaming whirlwind appeared on the surface of the water, heading for Xiao Chen. Burning the heavens. Xiao Chen did not move. As he burned his vital qi, azure clouds filled the sky. Then, a dragon fist descended. The azure dragon fist seemed to contain boundless force, scattering the whirlwind in an instant. So. Sparks flew everywhere. The fire demon moved his hands. The instant the whirlwind scattered, the sparks quickly formed 3 small whirlwinds and continued flying. Claw. Xiao Chen turned his fist into a claw. The burning azure clouds in the sky turned into a huge dragon claw. With a gentle pull, it tore the 3 whirlwinds into pieces. Boom! 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 However, the berserk flames did not show any signs of stopping. The moment they shattered, they reformed and surged at Xiao Chen again. Xiao Chen did not show any signs of fear. He burned his vital qi continuously as he executed the Dragon Claw Fist's 3rd move, burning the heavens, continuously changing. No matter how the flames surged and how many changes there were, Xiao Chen remained unmoved. As his fist and claw switched, he shattered them all. In the fire demon's anxiety, the flames in his hand changed into countless patterns. He was very familiar with the various changes. However, Xiao Chen did not budge. He directly used brute force to break the fire demon's attack. This was bullying the fire demon for not having enough strength. Xiao Chen did not play tricks with the fire demon, clashing head-on with brute force. When Xiao Chen saw that the flames above the fire demon's head had shrunk to the size of a fist, he squinted and finally moved. Xiao Chen stopped burning his vital qi, and his figure leaped up. Then, he executed the berserk dragon fist, smashing down. Roar! The dragon roared, and the sound waves spread out, shattering the flames into pieces. Then, the azure dragon head descended on the flames. A horrified expression appeared on the fire demon's face. Then, he made up his mind and spat out an incredibly vast and vigorous flame. Red flames immediately filled Xiao Chen's vision. He smiled coldly, and the purple thunder true fire, which he had been preparing for a long time, surged out from his right eye. Bang! The moment the stored-up purple flames came into contact with the flames that the fire demon spat out, it tore them apart like they were rotten wood. The yin and yang flames clashed, creating a boundless shock wave. A deep, ball-shaped pit appeared in the Scarlet Sea. The surrounding seawater sank and formed a huge whirlpool. The fire demon was blasted far away in a sorry state. He, who had played with fire all his life, finally got played by it. The fire demon's skin tore open, and blood flowed out. Only a small strand of the flame above his head remained, swaying with the wind. Xiao Chen walked forward expressionlessly and used the armor-breaking fist to punch a large, bloody hole in the fire demon's chest, which had a weak aura. Chapter 509. Zhang Xian could not be bothered to waste his breath on him. Just the thought of the corpses on the blood sea made him seethe with hatred. There is no doubt about the fire demon's techniques and offensive abilities. He should be the strongest among all the demons. If he runs into an opponent weaker than him, he can easily kill them. That is why he usually moves out alone. After the battle ended, Xiao Chen summarized some of the fire demon's strengths and characteristics and felt a headache coming on. If Xiao Chen ran into a fire demon of equal strength, he would be at a disadvantage in a contest of techniques. Hence, if he ran into a middle-ranked blood demon, he had to end the battle quickly and force it to clash head-on. For the rest of the time, Xiao Chen spent all his time looking for the succubus, but unfortunately, he did not find anything. Succubus was a type of female demon. According to the book, she was a demon that could arouse the desires of men. She also cultivated in bewitching techniques. By absorbing the yang essence of humans to cultivate, one could experience extreme happiness and die painlessly. Of all the demons, they were the strangest and most difficult to deal with. If one's will was not strong enough, they would sink into them. It was also the type of demon that Xiao Qian was most afraid of. No one could avoid the natural instincts of men. It was the deepest desire hidden in the body. Xiao Qian was somewhat disappointed that he did not find any low-ranked Eros demons. If he went to the inner area, he would have to face a middle-rank Eros demon right from the start. It would be much more difficult to resist the temptation. I'll search for another 7 days. If I can't find it, then forget it. I've wasted too much time in the periphery. In mid-air, Xiao Qian looked at the vast sea of blood and sighed softly. 7 days passed very quickly. Xiao Qian still did not find anything. Occasionally, he would meet some cultivators and ask around. However, none of them had seen an Eros demon. Some said that they saw a succubus from afar, but when Xiao Qian rushed over, he still found nothing. In the end, he could only give up helplessly. He had found all 18 types of demons, but he had not found the Eros demon. It was truly a pity. That night, Xiao Qian found a reef and casually sat on it. He closed his eyes and did not do anything. He did not cultivate or comprehend any states. He only did one thing, and that was to comb through the 17 types of demons that he had encountered. What were their weaknesses, what were their strengths, and what were their habits and characteristics? He began to make a summary. After daybreak tomorrow, he would enter the inner area of the battlefield and begin the real trial. Xiao Qian was not like Bai Lishi, who had a full set of medial-grade secret treasures. He also did not go in groups like the others. This was a matter of life and death. These preparations were necessary. The iron demons excelled at defense and were natural meat shields. However, their offensive power was not strong. If they encountered a high-level iron demon, they would avoid it if they could. No one liked the feeling of forging iron. The fire demons were the demons with the strongest techniques and explosive power. If Xiao Qian encountered them, there was no need to compare techniques with them. He should just clash head-on and end the battle quickly. He could not allow the fire demons to display their advantage in techniques. Winged demons had good speed and defense, but their attack power was slightly weaker. They liked to dive down from mid-air, and their weakness was that they had less cuticles on their heads. When they dove down, they could directly explode their heads. Information like this kept flashing through Xiao Qian's mind. Xiao Qian kept summarizing and refining the information, and then came up with techniques to deal with such high-level demons. By the time Xiao Qian opened his eyes again, the sky was already bright. He jumped off the reef and headed towards the inner area of the battlefield without hesitation. There was a clear dividing line between the inner area and the outer area. Although it was not marked, as long as one crossed that line, one could clearly feel it. The pressure on one's mind was different. The various demons were also stronger than the ones in the outer area. Not long after, Xiao Qian ran into a group of high-ranked winged demons. When he scanned them with his spiritual sense, he discovered there were about 20 of them. 20 is a little too much. 10 should be the limit. I should lure some away first. Xiao Qian did not intend to avoid them. He quickly formed hand seals and changed his hand seals. Then, 10 human-shaped pillars of water slowly rose up from the water. Life bestowal spell. Xiao Qian shouted, and the 10 pillars of water suddenly formed. The blood turned into 10 people. They all looked like humans, both male and female. Now that Xiao Qian was very familiar with the life bestowal spell, this trick was no longer a problem for him. However, the blood did not have any spiritual energy. Naturally, the figures formed would not have any combat prowess. However, they could still be used to attract the attention of the demons. Xiao Qian directed the 10 figures to charge at the group of winged demons. Xiao slowly flew into the air and waited quietly. Puda! Puda! The 10 figures were so real that the winged demons could not tell them apart. When they felt that their prey did not have a strong aura, they laughed strangely and charged down. They took the bait. Xiao lips curled up, revealing a faint smile on his delicate face. Then, he gave those clones a final order to charge forward. Xiao main body slowly descended and headed for the remaining 10 high-ranked winged demons. Then, he placed his right hand on his saber hilt and slowly walked over. Hey, there is someone who is not afraid of death here. He is just a medial grade martial king, and he is already running away. He is really bold. A winged demon laughed strangely in the air and dived down. It was like an arrow leaving the bow, giving off a buzzing sound as it tore through the air. Xiao smiled and quickly moved in an arc. He tilted his body slightly and punched the berserk dragon fist at the winged demon's head. Xiao! When the high-ranked winged demon's attack missed, it reacted very quickly to Xiao attack. It flapped its wings and slid over, brushing past Xiao punch. Not bad. The reaction of a high-ranked winged demon was not something a middle-ranked winged demon could compare to. If it were a middle-ranked winged demon, its head would have exploded long ago. Unfortunately, this was not enough. Xiao narrowed his eyes and formed a claw with his fingers. A huge azure dragon claw appeared and grabbed the other party's head, crushing it. How ruthless! The other winged demons flying in the air all took a deep breath. The main reason was not because of Xiao strength but because of his expression when he made his move. Without any fluctuations, Xiao killed a demon in 2 moves. Blood spurted out, but he did not even bat an eyelid. Xiao! 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 The other winged demons dived down at the same time, attacking Xiao together. When they spread their wings, it felt like they covered the sky. Xiao smiled faintly and removed the blue strip of cloth on his forehead. The scarlet mark flickered continuously, and the state of massacre spread out wildly. Since Xiao was here to temper his killing chi, he could not use the great perfection state of thunder. If he wanted to use it, he would use the purest state of massacre. Kill! Xiao drew the lunar shadow saber, and a red light spread out on the slender saber. A surging state of massacre surged out like it was solid, causing the momentum of the winged demons to pause. Wukuei transforms to Qi. Saber lights danced, and scarlet Wukuei tree branches flew at the 9-headed winged demons. Bang! 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 The scarlet saber Qi struck the winged demons. With the support of the saber intent, it tore through the thick skin and left deep wounds. The momentum of the 9-headed winged demons was immediately disrupted. Xiao leaped into the air and landed in the middle of the group of winged demons. Xiao figure flickered, and saber lights danced around. He fought continuously with the 9-headed winged demons, ignoring life and death. Xiao only treated this as a trial to temper his state of massacre. Normally speaking, Xiao could deal with 2 high-ranked blood demons easily. However, dealing with 3 would be problematic. Dealing with 4 would require him to pay the price of light injuries. Xiao did not know what price he would have to pay to deal with 9 in one go. Perhaps he would be severely injured, perhaps he would die. However, Xiao came to the deep-sea battlefield to challenge his limits. He wanted to comprehend the true meaning of the martial Tao between life and death. Hence, he had to force himself into dire straits. Xiao had already made all the preparations. All he could do now was to do his best to fight, to stimulate his potential and survive. Bang! 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 Waves churned and pillars of water rose up in the Scarlet Sea. Ripples spread out in all directions. The winged demons were demons that specialized in speed. Xiao speed was not slow either. The battlefield between the 2 of them kept moving, they were in the sky and on the ground, moving quickly in all directions. Xiao Chen's white robes were already dyed red with blood. Some belonged to the winged demons, and some belonged to him. Xiao Chen's fair face was also covered in blood, making him look very ferocious. A red light flickered in his eyes. Chi! Chi! When a winged demon died, a red light immediately shot into the forehead of the winged demon. The red light in Xiao Chen's eyes intensified, and his state of massacre instantly soared, becoming even more berserk. After absorbing a strand of red light, Xiao Chen would not break it like he did in the past. He wanted to give it a try. Xiao Chen wanted to see if he could use the euphoria of massacre to increase his combat prowess. After the battle ended, he could suppress it together. Kill! 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 The thought of massacre filled Xiao Chen's mind. He ignored the wounds on his body and used his sharp saber techniques to kill the blood demons flying around. After a long time, the intense battle above the Scarlet Sea finally stopped. Drops of blood dripped off the lunar shadow saber and fell into the Scarlet Sea. Xiao! 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 Countless strands of red light from the high-ranked winged demon's corpse quickly flew towards Xiao Chen's forehead. Boom! When the red light poured in, it was like something exploded in Xiao Chen's mind. The euphoria of massacre that he had been feeling all this while burst forth at this moment. Xiao Chen clenched his teeth and resisted this euphoria. He had a pained expression on his face. The lunar shadow saber fell into the Scarlet Sea with a huang dang sound. In the end, the state of massacre is not my own. I cannot overuse it. I have to clear this stage and take the initiative to grasp the state of massacre. No matter how intense that feeling was, Xiao Chen held his head with both hands and resisted bitterly. He steeled his belief in his mind. Young hero, you look like you are in great pain. Do you need elder sister to help? Just as Xiao Chen was in great pain, a sweet voice rang out. When Xiao Chen heard that voice, the euphoria of massacre seemed to lessen somewhat. Xiao Chen's eyes regained some clarity. When he saw who it was, he could not help but be stunned. An Eros demon. The one who spoke with that sweet voice was actually the Eros demon that Xiao Chen had been searching for. Unexpectedly, it appeared at this crucial moment. That Eros demon looked very similar to what was described in the information. She was tall and voluptuous. Her clothes were revealing a lot of her skin. Her skin was smooth and white, looking very delicate. Chapter 5:10. She looked no different from a human woman. However, there was a thin, black tail sticking up behind her. This made it clear that she was not human. However, for some reason, when Xiao Chen looked at her face, it was blurry, he could only feel hazy. Xiao Chen discovered that the thrill of the frenzied massacre was slowly fading away, replaced by another kind of desire. The Eros demon's eyes were still red. However, they were not blood red but crimson. The Eros demon seemed to have a boundless charm. With just one glance, Xiao Chen felt his entire body heat up and his mouth go dry. As the Eros demon got closer, a fragrance wafted over. The Eros demon's soft voice rang out in Xiao Chen's ears. The entire space seemed to be filled with pink light. When the Eros demon saw the crimson light in Xiao Chen's eyes, she revealed a cocky expression. She stretched out her right hand and tried to touch Xiao Chen's somewhat bewitching face. Xiao! Just at this moment, the crimson light in Xiao Chen's eyes faded away. They became clear again. Xiao Chen stretched out his right hand at lightning speed and grabbed the Eros demon's wrist. Don't move. Xiao Chen's two fingers were like pincers on the Eros demon's lifeline. The Eros demon's hazy face revealed only a pair of alluring eyes. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Scatter your charm technique and look at me. If you move, you will die immediately. Young hero, don't be like this. This servant is doing this out of good intentions. I grabbed you back from your desire to kill. The real show is coming up next." The Eros demon's almond-shaped eyes were like flowers. She leaned towards Xiao Chen and a faint fragrance spread out from her body. Xiao Chen exerted some force on the Eros demon's right hand. The Eros demon immediately panicked and stopped what she was doing. Xiao Chen smiled coldly and said, "What is the real show? Sucking my Yang Yuan? You are about to die, yet you still dare to be dishonest? I'll say it again. Don't play any tricks. Scatter your charm technique and look at me. Hee hee. In that case, I'll listen to young hero. This servant will scatter my charm technique." The succubus giggled, and the faint fragrance in the surrounding space immediately disappeared. Her hazy face also clearly appeared in Xiao Chen's field of vision. What surprised Xiao Chen was that this succubus appearance was incomparably pure. Her almond-shaped eyes had become clear and pure, and there was a purple rhombus mark between her eyebrows. Strange, I don't think I've heard of a succubus having a mark between their brows. The mark seemed to be engraved with an ancient pattern. Just as Xiao Chen's eyes focused on it, the mark suddenly flashed with a demonic purple light. Xiao Chen's eyes momentarily blurred. By the time his powerful divine sense reacted, the succubus in his right hand had already broken free from his control. Blood Flame Shoes, activate. The runes on the boots suddenly blossomed, and Xiao Chen's speed suddenly reached 4 times the speed of sound. He turned around and appeared in front of the succubus. Boom! Xiao Chen struck the succubus with the berserk dragon fist. The dragon head roared ferociously, and the succubus vomited a large mouthful of blood. Her complexion paled as she fell miserably into the water. Xiao Chen said calmly, "You are an advanced demon, right?" The so-called advanced demon was not a high-ranked blood demon or a low-ranked blood demon. Instead, it was the nobility of the demons. Demons were also an intelligent race. They had their own martial techniques and civilization. However, in the demonic world, only advanced demons and the higher-ranked royal clans were qualified to learn the demonic race's martial techniques. The demons that Xiao Chen saw on this battlefield were all low-ranked demons. None of them could learn the demonic race's martial techniques. They all relied on their innate abilities to fight. In reality, the demons that came out of the spatial tiers were all low-ranked demons. Even the demons, who were as strong as martial saints, were only extremely talented and had cultivated their physical bodies to the extreme. This was the information that Xiao Chen had read in an ancient book before he came here. However, the Eros demon before him seemed different. The mark on her forehead was extremely ancient. The Eros demon, who was currently wiping the blood off her lips, looked at Xiao Chen in shock. Her expression changed slightly as she asked, "How did you know?" Naturally, Xiao Chen would not tell her that he was just guessing. It was impossible for an advanced demon to be so weak. Something must have happened to her, causing her to become extremely weak. "What do you want to do? Just say it." The Eros demon no longer hid her identity. Her earlier gentleness vanished without a trace, replaced by a faint might. She could tell that Xiao Chen did not want to kill her. If he really wanted to kill her, he would have done so long ago. There was no need to wait until now. Xiao Chen stepped gently on the water and slowly walked towards the Eros demon. He asked indifferently, "What is your name?" "You should already have a name as an advanced demon." "Leng Yu. Accompany me for a year, and I will let you go." Xiao Chen paused for a while before finally stating his purpose. Leng Yu's heart turned cold. Humans in many planes had the habit of subduing Eros demons as pets. Could this person be thinking of the same thing? Xiao Chen continued, "In this 1 year, if I fall into the state of massacre, you will be responsible for pulling me back until I completely grasp the state of massacre." Leng Yu heaved a sigh of relief. If that was all, there was no problem. However, she thought of a problem. She asked, "What if you still cannot grasp the state of massacre after a year?" Xiao Chen looked coldly at the Eros demon and said indifferently, "That is my problem. You don't have to care about it. I only have one question. Do you agree or not?" A killing intent spread out from Xiao Chen's body and enveloped Leng Yu. Xiao Chen's tone did not contain any emotion. Leng Yu felt a bone-chilling coldness. She had a premonition that as long as she answered no, this person in front of her would definitely not kill her without mercy. I agree. In the end, Leng Yu still chose to agree. It was just 1 year. To her, who had a long life ahead of her, 1 year was too short. Xiao Chen scattered the killing intent in his heart. He took out a spirit blood jade from the universe ring and dripped his blood on it. Then, he tossed it over and said, "Drip your spirit blood on it. I will let you go after a year." Leng Yu shook her head and said, "No. That way, you will completely control me. At that time, I will not be able to do anything even if you do not let me go." Xiao Chen did not say much to her. He said indifferently, "Think about it yourself. If you are not willing, I will find another Eros demon." The other party needed to drip her spirit blood on the spirit blood jade before Xiao Chen could feel at ease keeping her by his side. The demons were very cunning, not to mention the Eros demon, who was good at charming people. Furthermore, if others discovered that he was with an Eros demon, it would be problematic. Entering the spirit blood jade would allow him to avoid these problems. Collecting his thoughts, Xiao Chen started to search for his saber. His lunar shadow saber had fallen into the Scarlet Sea and had sunk for an unknown length of time. Normally speaking, if the lunar shadow saber was within 2 kilometers, Xiao Chen would be able to sense it easily. However, that lunar shadow saber had already fallen for a long time. Furthermore, there was the undercurrent at the bottom of the sea. It might already be 10 kilometers deep. Xiao Chen extended his spiritual sense into the depths of the sea. However, after a kilometer, he could not go any deeper. He could only return empty-handed. However, Xiao Chen was not worried. He could sense the general direction of the lunar shadow saber. He would not really lose it. Collecting his thoughts, Xiao Chen walked over to the somewhat pitiful Eros demon. He said indifferently, "Have you thought it through?" Leng Yu clenched her teeth and said, "I promise you. I hope you will keep your promise. Also, I will say something else. I am the only one who can pull you out of a massacre. The other Eros demons will not be able to do so." Xiao Chen was somewhat surprised. However, he did not believe the other party's words. The demons were crafty. He could only treat it as a scheme. Xiao Chen took out the spirit blood jade with Leng Yu's soul blood. Then, he dripped his own soul blood on it. After using a secret technique, this Eros demon would be his spirit pet in the future. If he died, Leng Yu, who had sacrificed her soul blood, would die immediately as well. This was enough to guarantee that the other party would not play any tricks. "Come in," Xiao Chen instructed softly. Leng Yu helplessly turned into a beam of dim light and entered the spirit blood jade. Bai's seal in the spirit blood jade had already been forcefully broken by her father. Hence, there was no problem with using this spirit blood jade to seal Leng Yu. After putting away the spirit blood jade, Xiao Chen closed his eyes and carefully sensed the direction of the lunar shadow saber. The moment the lunar shadow saber formed, Xiao Chen held it in his hand. After thousands of battles, Xiao Chen had already established an indistinct connection with the lunar shadow saber. In reality, every cultivator had a similar experience. Back then, Ping Xingting was able to find Xiao Chen's saber because of this. As long as one had feelings for one's weapon and treated it as a companion, over time, one would naturally establish this wondrous connection. After a while, Xiao Chen opened his eyes and quickly stepped on the Scarlet Sea. His figure flickered, and in a short while, he had traversed more than a kilometer. It should be here. However, I do not know how deep I have sunk. I have never heard anyone mention how deep the boundless sea is. After hesitating for a while, Xiao Chen used his essence to form a barrier around him. Then, he slowly sank into the Scarlet Sea. After sinking for 500 meters, Xiao Chen's vision turned blurry. Fortunately, he had his spiritual sense, so he was not blind. After descending another 500 meters, Xiaochen finally saw the strange fish that he had seen before. Their pitch-black bodies were covered in hard scales. Their sharp teeth crisscrossed together, not allowing any water to pass through. With his spiritual sense, Xiaochen could see many skeletons floating around in the seawater. There were at least 1,000 of them. They looked very horrifying. However, there were even more strange fish than the skeletons. Their numbers were staggering. They floated around in large groups. Everywhere they passed was like a hurricane. There were at least 10,000 of them. Xiaochen felt his scalp go numb. With so many of them, he could not do anything to them in the water. Xiaochen could only carefully avoid these strange fish. He walked and stopped. After he figured out the pattern of these strange fishes' movements, he increased his speed. After descending another 2,000 meters, the entire Scarlet Sea sank into eternal darkness. Xiaochen felt a boundless pressure in his heart. He felt very uncomfortable. He did not want to stay here any longer. However, for the sake of the lunar shadow saber, he could only endure. As a bladesman, he could lose anything except his saber. After descending another 5 kilometers, Xiaochen finally felt the presence of the lunar shadow saber. It was about 2 or 3 kilometers ahead. Although he could not see it, the feeling was very real. Xiaochen increased his speed again. Chapter 5:11. A spot of light flickered quietly in the dark seawater. It was Xiaochen's lunar shadow saber. Xiaochen rejoiced in his heart. He revealed a faint smile and waved his hand. The lunar shadow saber quickly swam towards him. Xiao! The lunar shadow saber swam faster and faster. When it arrived before Xiaochen, he grabbed the handle and sheathed it. Lunar shadow! Lunar shadow! No matter where you run to, even if you run to the ends of the world, I will find you and bring you back. Xiaochen held the saber and said resolutely in his heart. With the saber in his hand, the pressure in his heart immediately lessened significantly. Woo! Woo! Suddenly, there was a strange sound in the surroundings. Xiaochen frowned and became cautious. He extended out his spiritual sense and discovered that many skeletons had appeared in the surroundings at some point in time. These skeletons were different from the human skeletons above. They did not move with the sea current. Instead, they moved towards Xiaochen in a regular pattern. 2 spots of light floated in the eyes of these skeletons. They seemed to be alive as they flickered. Quickly leave. These are lich fiends made from the resentment of human kings and demons. They cannot be killed. Don't get entangled by them. Leng Yu's anxious voice came from the spirit blood jade in Xiaochen's chest. Even without Leng Yu's reminder, Xiaochen had already felt something strange about these skeletons. So he quickly swam upwards. However, it was already too late. There were too many lich fiends. At some point in time, they had already surrounded Xiaochen. 5 or 6 skeletons above slowly descended towards Xiaochen. A faint fluorescent light burned in the hands of the skeletons. When they were only 5 meters away from Xiaochen, the fluorescent light shot towards him. The fluorescent ball of light flew towards Xiaochen. The ball of light seemed formless as it penetrated his essence shield and entered his forehead. Ghostly cries and wolf howls resounded in Xiaochen's sea of consciousness. The ball of light turned into a malicious spirit, devouring Xiaochen's mental energy. Oh no! It's a mental attack. Xiaochen focused and quickly gathered his spiritual sense in his sea of consciousness, forming a dazzling golden deity. The golden deity held a sharp saber and sent out a resplendent sword light, killing the evil spirits in the sea of consciousness one by one, and the evil spirits dissipated. The devoured spiritual force returned to Xiaochen's sea of consciousness. The spiritual force in his sea of consciousness seemed to be much stronger than before. Kacha kacha. Following the death of the evil spirit in the brain, the body of the lich blocking the way in front of him cracked and quickly decayed, turning into nothingness in the dark sea. When Leng Yu, who was in the spirit blood jade, saw all this, she was greatly startled. Although these were the weakest witch fiends, even a martial monarch would not be able to deal with their mental attacks so easily. Xiao Qin was merely a medial-grade martial king. Unexpectedly, his mental energy was ridiculously strong. No wonder Xiao Qin could break free from his charm technique with just a thought. Within the light shield, Xiao Qin understood. He smiled lightly. He didn't plan on leaving. The spiritual attacks of these liches were completely ineffective against him. Instead, they would be devoured by him. Mental energy was not easy to cultivate. How could there be such a good thing in the world? It would be a pity to leave like this. After 1 hour, the witch fiends blocking Xiao Qin scattered. They avoided Xiao Qin like he was the plague. Xiao Qin laughed loudly and chased after the witch fiends. If they only had mental attacks, he would not be afraid of these witch fiends. Boom! Just as he was about to give chase, a bright light suddenly exploded in the darkness, illuminating the eternal darkness of the seabed. A skeleton with a jade-like luster walked out from the light. Every bone was crystal clear, looking like a work of art. 2 balls of firefly light shone brightly in his eyes, giving off a feeling of holiness. Pu Ci. The jade-like witch fiend looked at Xiao Qin and waved its 5 fingers. A beam of light turned into a sharp blade and sliced the seawater in half, heading for Xiao Qin. This is an advanced witch fiend. Furthermore, it is a rare sage attribute witch fiend. You have no chance. Hurry. Leave quickly. This witch fiend was able to materialize mental energy and achieve such might. Xiao Qin knew that he was not a match for it. The instant the beam of light appeared, he immediately headed for the top of his head. Who? Who? The advanced witch fiend flicked its hand a few times. Beams of mental energy turned into radiant blades and shot at Xiao Qin from the bottom of the sea. Sliced by the radiance blade, the scarlet sea seawater was like tofu, sliced into pieces of various sizes and separated. He wasn't cutting through the seawater, he was cutting the void into pieces. Xiao Qin understood and was horrified. This time, he had kicked an iron plate. He should not have coveted the mental energy. Friend, since you are already here, why leave? Suddenly, a dignified voice rang out in Xiao Qin's mind. The advanced witch fiend pointed at the top of Xiao Qin's head. 9 dragon-shaped beams of radiant energy formed a cage, trapping Xiao Qin. As the cage descended, the space below seemed to shrink, trapping Xiao Qin within it. This was the power of the laws of heaven and earth. Xiao Qin had never expected mental energy to be so mighty. It could even change the laws of heaven and earth. Xiao Qin did not just sit and wait for death. He shouted ferociously, and the spiritual sense formed by the mental origin in his mind rushed out of his forehead. Then, he chopped at the cage with a sharp blade in his hand. Bang! Xiao Qin gathered all his spiritual sense and chopped down on the cage. The seawater shook intensely, and the cage was chopped in half by the sword strike. The radiance of the deity was incomparably dim. There was only an indistinct shadow flickering faintly. Now that his spiritual sense was damaged, Xiao Qin immediately felt sleepy. He felt incredibly weak, like he would fall asleep at any moment. However, there was no time to rest. Xiao Qin could only force himself to focus and recall his spiritual sense back into his sea of consciousness. Then, he quickly rushed over. Xiao Qin had just rushed over when the cage of light closed up again. The advanced witch fiend below entered deep thought. It was unknown what he was thinking. The advanced witch fiend stopped attacking and flicked his finger. The cage of light turned back into 9 dragon-shaped beams of energy and returned to his body. Strange, such impure mental energy can actually cut open my 9-dragon prison, the advanced witch fiend thought doubtfully. Xiao Qin felt increasingly dizzy, he saw stars. His mental energy was extremely weak, and he felt like he would fall asleep at any moment. Xiao Qin mustered the last of his energy and swam forward quickly. He could not fall asleep in this scarlet sea. If he fell asleep, he would end up in the stomachs of the fish. Just as Xiaochen thought of the strange fish, a large school of strange fish appeared in front of him. Xiaochen smiled bitterly to himself, my luck is really bad. The spirit blood jade on Xiaochen's chest glowed faintly. That was a sign that Leng Yu was about to come out. Xiaochen stopped her, don't come out. You will not be able to help. Ka Xie. Xiaochen drew the lunar shadow saber, and a red light flickered on his forehead. The saber gave off a scarlet light, and the state of massacre burst forth. Kill! 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 The scarlet pool in the throne churned continuously. Xiaochen's mind was filled with the state of massacre. His saber techniques became incredibly sharp. Saber lights flashed in the scarlet sea. Every time Xiaochen swung his saber, 10 odd strange fish would be chopped in half. However, there were simply too many strange fish. They were everywhere in the scarlet sea. They opened their sharp mouths and tried to bite Xiaochen. Xiaochen protected the vital points of his body and went all out. The sharp state of massacre made his saber technique incredibly ferocious. He would kill whoever blocked his way. Pu Tong. After killing for an unknown period of time, Xiaochen leaped out of the scarlet sea. The wounds on his body looked somewhat horrifying. His white clear wind robes were dyed red. Blood splashed on his body, mixing with his own blood. Xiaochen looked like he came out of hell. Now that Xiaochen was out of the water, he would no longer be harassed by the strange fish. The drowsiness that he forcibly suppressed came back together with the relaxation of his heart. The pain on his body and the weakening of his mind made Xiaochen dizzy. His entire body felt incredibly sore. I'm going to sleep. Don't wake me up if there is nothing important. Xiaochen muttered. He could no longer hold on. He closed his eyes and fell into the vast scarlet sea. Xiao. The spirit blood jade on Xiaochen's neck flickered with a dim light. The Eros demon Leng Yu came out of the jade and looked at Xiaochen sleeping soundly in the scarlet sea. She shook her head slightly. How reckless. How did you know that I could not do anything to those corpse demonic fish? Leng Yu looked up at the pitch-black sky and gazed into the distance. She said softly, is this the Sky Dome realm? The once strongest realm of the 3,000 great realms. Indeed, it has declined significantly. Xiaochen slept very soundly. He slept for 3 whole days without waking up. His body floated on the surface of the sea for a long time. If a human cultivator came over and saw Xiaochen covered in wounds and bloodstains, they would think that he was a corpse if they did not pay attention. Human cultivators were not interested in corpses. Leng Yu hid in the spirit blood jade and did not attract any trouble. If a demon came over to snatch away Xiaochen's corpse, Leng Yu would have to jump out and say that the prey already had an owner. The other demons would also leave. Back and forth, the same thing happened nearly every day. Another 3 days passed like this, but Xiaochen still did not wake up. However, Leng Yu felt somewhat annoyed. She said in a low voice, this fellow definitely knows that I will help him cover up. That's why he dares to sleep so soundly. Leng Yu had taken out her spirit blood. If Xiaochen died, she would die as well. No matter how annoyed she was, she had to continue helping him cover up. Dong! 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 Footsteps came from the surface of the sea again. When Leng Yu felt the aura of humans, she quickly hid in the spirit blood jade. A team of 10 people walked over to Xiaochen in the distance. Someone immediately discovered Xiaochen's body. He exclaimed, Big brother, there seems to be a person lying in front. The person leading the team was about 40 years old. He had a calm expression and a sword hung at his waist. He was a small perfection half-step martial monarch. The teams that dared to mingle in the inner area would have a half-step martial monarch leading them. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to mingle in the inner area. The middle-aged swordsman glanced over and lost interest. He said indifferently, it is just a corpse. What is so strange about that? There are always people dying on the battlefield. Even if there was something good, it would have been taken away long ago. The person who spoke smiled and did not say anything more. He had only said it casually and did not mean anything else. However, the middle-aged swordsman had only taken a few steps when he frowned and stopped. He vaguely saw the other party's lips move. When the person behind saw the middle-aged swordsman stop, he could not help but ask, "Big brother, what's wrong?" Chapter 5:12. The middle-aged swordsman did not say anything. He placed his right hand on his sword hilt and slowly walked towards Xiao Chen. When he was 100 meters away from Xiao Chen, he drew his sword and sent out a sharp sword chi. He drew his sword and sent out a sharp sword chi at Xiao Chen. Dang! Leng Yu flew out from the spirit blood jade and sent out a beam of energy to block the sword chi. Eros demon. Why is an Eros demon with a human? What's going on? It really is an Eros demon. There are really all sorts of strange things happening these days. When the cultivators behind the middle-aged swordsman saw Leng Yu's hazy face, they were all astonished. They quickly took a few steps back and discussed the situation. In this battlefield, the Eros demon was very mysterious. Most cultivators avoided the various legends about the Eros demon. However, the middle-aged swordsman did not panic. Instead, a look of envy flashed in his eyes. He smiled faintly and said, "I nearly misjudged. This fellow actually subdued an Eros demon as a pet." Looking at the hazy face and beautiful eyes of Leng Yu, the middle-aged swordsman said calmly, "Don't make things difficult for me. I will take something and leave. I will not harm this person's life." The Eros demon's charm technique had a fatal attraction to humans. Before Leng Yu unleashed her charm technique, the middle-aged swordsman already felt his entire body heat up. If Leng Yu unleashed her charm technique, given his willpower, he would not be able to block it. Leng Yu smiled tenderly and said, "No way. This person has a bad temper. If you take away his spatial ring, he will definitely punish me. Big brothers, please do me a favor and pretend you did not see anything." The voice was very gentle and seductive. The cultivators behind the middle-aged swordsman had already moved a long distance away. However, when the middle-aged swordsman heard this voice, he still felt dizzy. His entire body felt very comfortable, like the little sister next door acting spoiled to him. The middle-aged swordsman calmed himself and thought to himself, "Indeed, she lives up to her reputation. I have already started cultivating my mental energy, but I still cannot block it." Pu ci. The middle-aged swordsman was already prepared. He took out a short sword and stabbed it into his chest, 1 centimeter away from his heart. Intense pain jolted the middle-aged swordsman awake. He narrowed his eyes and raised his sword, charging at Leng Yu. Leng Yu was startled. She had not expected this person to use such a decisive method to break her charm art. Xiao Chen grasped the position of the short sword very precisely, putting the cultivator in constant danger of death. With death looming over their heads, no one would think about lust at the moment of life and death, unless they had cultivated their charm technique to the pinnacle. Damn it, the after effects of forcefully transmigrating to another plane are too great. Otherwise, how could this little trick deal with me? Leng Yu felt very anxious. She blocked her opponent's sword technique in a sorry state. Her opponent was a half-step martial monarch. His sword chi was very ferocious. Bang, bang, bang. Sword chi flew everywhere, and the waves on the blood sea churned endlessly. The middle-aged swordsman's chest was bleeding profusely, but his expression was one of madness. Xiao Chen forced Leng Yu to retreat continuously. He smiled maniacally and said, "Are you regretting it now? You should have agreed earlier. Ha ha ha. Now, not only do I want to take the things, but I also want to take the person. I have not experienced the taste of an Eros demon before." Boom. The swordsman's sword technique changed, and a huge sword chi swept over from the side. Leng Yu could not dodge in time and was struck by the sword chi. She vomited a mouthful of blood and fell miserably into the water. Leng Yu was already wearing very little clothes in the first place. When the sword chi struck her, her clothes became even more tattered. She could not hide her body at all. "Aren't your charm arts very powerful? Try it on me." "Ha ha ha." The middle-aged swordsman laughed maniacally. Sword lights danced around. Leng Yu, who had just gotten up, could not block a few moves. The sword chi knocked her back again. Several sinister wounds appeared on Leng Yu's fair skin, and blood flowed out. After 7 or 8 minutes, Leng Yu was severely injured. She lay weakly on the blood sea. The middle-aged swordsman smiled coldly and said, "You do not know what's good for you. Tie her up. I will let you enjoy yourself tonight." At this moment, Leng Yu looked very lovely. When she saw the cultivators behind the middle-aged swordsman, her blood surged. When they heard this, they all rushed over. The middle-aged swordsman looked at Xiao Chen. When he saw the universe ring in Xiao Chen's hand, he smiled faintly and said, "You can even subdue an Eros demon. You are quite capable. Unfortunately, the heavens want to subdue you. There is nothing you can do." The middle-aged swordsman stretched his right hand towards the ring on Xiao Chen's hand, wanting to break it off. Just as he bent over, Xiao Chen, who was lying on the blood sea, suddenly opened his eyes. "Even if the heavens want to subdue me, it is not your turn to take advantage of me. Pu Si." Xiao Chen, who had suddenly woken up, immediately stood up and smashed his palm on the sword hilt in front of his chest. The short sword pierced through the middle-aged swordsman's body. He was instantly severely injured. He vomited a mouthful of blood, and his complexion was extremely pale. The middle-aged swordsman quickly retreated. His expression was filled with shock. He had not expected the almost lifeless Xiao Chen to wake up at this moment. "Good. If you had not woken up, it would have been fine. I would have taken some things and left. However, since you injured me today, I will cut you into 1,000 pieces." The middle-aged swordsman shouted ferociously. He brandished his sword and a resplendent light flickered. A goshawk made of essence flew at Xiao Chen. The goshawk looked very real, every feather was clearly visible. It stuck close to the water surface and charged at Xiao Chen. A vast energy caused the blood water to soar. With the help of the goshawk, the blood water rose higher and higher. When it was only 100 meters away from Xiao Chen, it was like a huge wall, giving off a strong sense of pressure. Xiao Chen pulled his palm back and the lunar shadow saber appeared from the universe ring. The saber hummed as it flew out of its scabbard. Wukue shakes the heavens. A scarlet divine Wukue tree formed by the pure state of massacre descended from the sky, carrying an inextinguishable sharp saber intent. Bang! The tree's roots pressed down on the goshawk. It cried out miserably and turned into strands of essence that scattered. The scarlet Wukue tree's strength did not decrease. Suppressing the huge wave, an invisible force slowly spread out from the tree, suppressing the huge wave that had a terrifying momentum. The surging scarlet sea turned calm once again. A scarlet Wukue tree stood quietly on the water surface. No matter how the undercurrent flowed, it did not move at all. After breaking the other party's counterattack, Xiao Chen looked towards Leng Yu. He saw that Leng Yu's fair skin was covered in wounds. She looked very pitiful. The 9 subordinates of the middle-aged swordsman had wretched smiles on their faces as they walked towards Leng Yu excitedly. "You are seeking death." Xiao Chen's gaze turned cold and he pushed off the water surface violently. The force of this kick was very strong. After he leaped up, a pillar of water soared into the sky. Glittering Wukue. A scarlet Wukue tree branch appeared from nowhere. It flickered with a dazzling red light as it flew towards the cultivator in front. The sharp killing chi merged with Xiao Chen's inextinguishable sharp saber intent. The scarlet tree branch was like a saber chi descending from the sky. The person in front felt a bone-chilling cold. He quickly turned around and retreated. He drew his saber and sent out a screen of saber chi, trying to seal this strand of saber chi. However, the tree branch infused with the state of massacre and saber intent was extremely sharp. It pierced through the screen of saber chi in an instant. Then, it pierced through the cultivator's protective essence and pierced through his heart. His heart was broken, so naturally, he couldn't be more dead. That person's eyes widened and he fell backwards in extreme dissatisfaction. He landed heavily on the water surface with a bang. The other 8 were startled. They quickly scattered and surrounded Xiao Chen and Leng Yu, who had landed, from a distance. Xiao Chen helped Leng Yu up and asked, "Are you alright?" "That person injured me too severely. I do not want to enter the spirit blood jade," Leng Yu said somewhat miserably as she wiped the blood from the corner of her lips. Xiao Chen nodded to indicate his understanding. It was not that she could not enter the spirit blood jade. However, after she entered, she would fall into a deep sleep. She could only come out after she recovered. She would not be able to come out for at least half a month. Xiao Chen took out a set of clothes from the universe ring and handed it to her. He said calmly, "Sure. If you say you do not want to enter, then you do not. I will deal with this. Attack together. This brat can subdue an Eros demon. He must have many good things on him." The remaining 8 people drummed up their courage. In the end, the greed in their hearts won over their fear. They soared into the air and sent all sorts of ferocious killing moves at Xiao Chen. Seeing the multicolored attacks in the air, Xiao Chen did not dare to underestimate them. He swung his saber forward and quickly formed hand seals with his left hand. Scarlet ripples flickered under his feet. Wukue blossoms. After the hand seals were formed, Xiao Chen picked up Leng Yu, who was beside him. A scarlet flower bud enveloped the two of them. Bang! 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 8 sharp attacks struck the flower bud. Xiao Chen's qi and blood surged within it. His complexion turned red as he resisted the pressure from the flower bud. A vast energy spread out from the flower bud, forming a strong shockwave. A scarlet wall rose up in the surroundings. Not far away, the middle-aged swordsman looked at the flower bud. He hesitated for a while before taking out a medicinal pill and swallowing it. Then, he sat cross-legged on the water. The wound on his chest was very horrifying. Originally, he thought that Xiao Chen was just an ordinary peak medial grade martial king and that such an injury would not be a problem. However, reality proved that this was not the case. Xiao Chen had broken his killing move, which contains 60% of his strength, with one saber strike. Even a regular superior grade martial king would not have such an easy time. The swordsman had to treat the wound on his chest first. As for the other 8 people, he just needed to delay them for a while. He could not be bothered with whether they lived or died. Flower, bloom. Xiao Chen shouted and the scarlet flower bud instantly bloomed. Countless scarlet petals drifted quickly on the water's surface. It looked very enchanting. Xiao Chen carried Leng Yu and leaped into the air the instant the flower bloomed. He held his saber with one hand and charged at the 8 superior grade martial kings amid the petals. Dang! 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 An invisible red light flowed under the scarlet petals. When the red light entered Xiao Chen's body, it increased his speed significantly. He was able to deal with the attacks of the 8 people in a very calm manner. A faint red light flickered in Xiao Chen's eyes. The scarlet throne in his sea of consciousness trembled continuously. The state of massacre spread out in the air. It was clearly 8 against 1. However, when the 8 people faced Xiao Chen, they felt that they had no advantage at all. They were completely suppressed by Xiao Chen amid the petals. Chapter 5:13. That person tried to retreat a few times, but Xiaochen quickly caught up to him. With a flash, he sent out a dazzling saber light and forced that person back. The saber technique was filled with a state of massacre. However, Xiaochen felt calm in his heart. He looked at Leng Yu in his embrace and entered deep thought. This was the feeling Xiaochen needed to find when controlling his massacre. He wondered if it had anything to do with Leng Yu. As for the other 8 people in the flower petals, Xiaochen was not worried. Even if there were another 10 people in the flower petals, he was confident of trapping them. After another 15 minutes, one of the 8 people finally revealed an opening. Xiaochen narrowed his eyes and countless flower petals danced behind him. A sharp light flickered on his saber as saber intent surged out. He knocked aside the other party's weapon and gently sliced his neck. Blood spurted out and his head fell to the ground. With one person dead, the others panicked. They only thought of how to charge out. However, this gave Xiaochen a greater opportunity. Leng Yu, who was in Xiaochen's embrace, looked up at Xiaochen's calm expression. A strange feeling welled up in her heart. This youth was different from the humans she had seen before. After another 7 or 8 minutes, Xiaochen dealt with the remaining 7 people. He glanced at the middle-aged swordsman, who was anxiously treating his injuries. Then, he gently tossed Leng Yu into the air and landed on the water. Wukuei supporting the heavens. The flower petals filled the air and danced behind Xiaochen. A boundless red light poured into Xiaochen's body, causing the speed of this saber to reach its peak. It reached Mach 4. 5. The middle-aged swordsman opened his eyes and looked at the approaching Xiaochen and the countless flower petals behind him. He smiled sinisterly and said, "You have already recovered from your injuries, yet you still dare to charge over. Ignorant. Eagle spreading wings." The middle-aged swordsman shouted ferociously and stood up. A brilliant light flowed on his sword and a furious eagle spread its wings from behind him. It carried a boundless aura as it flapped its wings at Xiaochen. Chi! Chi! The eagle let out a loud and clear cry. As it flapped its wings, a gust of wind surged. Its sharp claws flickered with a cold light as it tried to grab Xiaochen's head. "Be careful," Leng Yu, who was in the water behind Xiaochen, exclaimed softly. Xiaochen's expression did not change. Together with the boundless scarlet petals behind him, he thrust his saber forward. The faint red light in Xiaochen's eyes turned bright red. He had fully activated the state of massacre. The red saber light instantly became extremely resplendent, it was so bright that it hurt people's eyes. Break! Xiaochen leaped into the air and pierced through the eagle's belly with his saber. Boom! Then, he pierced through the eagle's belly. Two eagle claws struck Xiaochen's body at the same time, leaving 10 bloody wounds. But that was all. Xiaochen still managed to pass through. Before the middle-aged swordsman's astonished gaze, Xiaochen swooped down at an extremely fast speed and knocked away the other party's sword with his saber. Then, the tip of his saber stabbed into the other party's chest. Hu Qi! The scarlet petals behind Xiaochen immediately surged in. A huge force exploded and knocked the swordsman back several hundred meters. A scarlet wukuei tree quickly grew out of the wound. The roots quickly took root in the middle-aged swordsman's body, firmly grasping his internal organs. The wukuei tree pressed down on the middle-aged swordsman, who was trying to stand up, preventing him from moving. Xiaochen slowly walked forward. Blood dripped from the tip of his saber. When he arrived beside the middle-aged swordsman, he did not hesitate to chop down. Leng Yu, who had followed over, lowered her head, not daring to look at Xiaochen. She whispered, "Xiaochen, can you let me handle this person?" Xiaochen was slightly stunned. Then, he understood what Leng Yu meant. Eros demons cultivated by absorbing the yang essence of men. A strong Eros demon that relied on yang essence to raise her cultivation would not be any weaker than other demons. When used together with charm techniques, they were the natural nemesis of male cultivators. Xiaochen felt that Len Yu's strength had been greatly weakened. Regular Eros demons would not be so weak. Aside from charm techniques, they did not know anything else. Furthermore, Len Yu was an advanced demon. That was the nobility of the demons. She was qualified to learn the demon race's martial techniques. No matter what, the middle-aged swordsman was a small perfection half-step martial monarch. He would be very useful in helping Len Yu recover her strength. Xiaochen was not afraid. If Len Yu's strength increased, she would be a threat to him. With the spirit blood jade, he would be able to control her life at all times. Xiaochen walked forward and scattered the divine Wukue tree on the middle-aged swordsman. Then, he quickly tapped on the swordsman's chest and sealed his meridians. Xiaochen said to Len Yu, "Do as you please. I will not disturb you." When Eros demons absorbed yang essence, they usually did so during intercourse. They would let the man enjoy extreme pleasure. When the pleasure reached its peak, they would automatically send out yang essence. There were other ways to extract yang essence. However, the effects would be much weaker. No Eros demon would be willing to use other methods. After Xiaochen spoke, he quickly left this place. He had fought many battles and exhausted a significant amount of essence. He also needed to deal with his injuries. Len Yu watched as Xiaochen left. She smiled bitterly, speechless. After that, she shifted her gaze to the middle-aged swordsman. Strands of pink light scattered into the surroundings like pollen. The middle-aged swordsman's eyes were filled with horror. He knew what awaited him. He struggled to stand on the water's surface, wanting to flee. However, he was helpless. His internal organs were badly injured. Furthermore, his meridians were sealed. He struggled a few times to no avail. Don't come over," Len Yu ignored the middle-aged swordsman's pleas. Her gaze was incredibly cold as she controlled the pollen light to enter his body. At first, the middle-aged swordsman resisted. However, in the end, his eyes turned hazy and he revealed a faint smile. His expression was extremely joyful. It was like he was experiencing something extremely happy. Many illusions of love appeared in his mind. After a while, Len Yu made her move. She grabbed the middle-aged swordsman's head and slowly closed her eyes. Strands of yang essence flowed into her body. This method was completely different from what Xiaochen had imagined. If he had known, he would not have dodged. As the strands of yang essence entered her body, Len Yu's injuries healed at a visible rate. Her delicate skin became even smoother and more exquisite. One could even faintly see a faint luster. Her entire face was glowing, and her fair skin looked so delicate that it seemed as if it would break at any moment. Bang! Len Yu released her hand and the middle-aged swordsman's body slowly fell to the water. He no longer breathed. Before he died, he still had a joyful smile on his face. Len Yu removed the middle-aged swordsman's spatial ring. However, she did not open it. Instead, she walked quickly towards Xiaochen on the surface of the water. Xiaochen sat cross-legged on the scarlet sea. He held 4 medial-grade spirit stones in his hands. When he heard Len Yu's footsteps, he opened his eyes and casually put away the medial-grade spirit stones that he had not finished absorbing. Who? Len Yu tossed the spatial ring to Xiaochen. Xiaochen stretched his hand out and caught it. He scanned it with his spiritual sense before placing it in his universe ring. When Xiaochen saw the radiant Len Yu, he frowned slightly. He felt a trace of displeasure. However, when he thought about how she was an Eros demon, he realized that it would be unfair to judge her by human standards. Xiaochen no longer bothered with this matter. He said, "I have a few questions for you." Len Yu nodded and said, "I will answer what I can tell you. As for what I cannot, don't force me." Xiaochen smiled gently and said indifferently, "Don't overthink. I am not interested in your identity. First question, how many days did I sleep for?" 10 days. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen had slept for so long. The drain on his mental energy was too great. This time, if not for Leng Yu's help, any demon or vicious cultivator would have been able to take his life. It looked like Xiao Chen had to be more cautious in the future. His mental energy had not been tempered and was very rough. In reality, it was not suitable for actual combat. Glancing at Leng Yu, Xiao Chen said softly, "Many thanks for your help in the past 10 days. Second question, how much do you know about Lich Fiends, especially that last advanced Lich Fiend?" Leng Yu thought for a while before saying, "Lich Fiends are not very mysterious. There are Lich Fiends in every plane. Some cultivators gather their resentment after they die. When there is enough resentment, it will attach itself to the skeleton and form a Lich Fiend. This is especially so in the human-demon battlefield. Who knows how many demons and cultivators have died in the past thousands of years. It is not strange for Lich Fiends to exist. However, that last advanced Lich Fiend is somewhat ridiculous." Xiao Chen exclaimed softly and asked, "How is it ridiculous?" "It is somewhat ridiculously strong. Advanced Lich Fiends do not have such strength. Furthermore, its aura is very gentle, radiant, and holy. I have never seen such a Lich Fiend before. It was indeed ridiculously strong. It could bring out its mental energy to such a level. Just thinking about it was horrifying. However, there was no need to worry for now. That Lich Fiend would not leave the bottom of the sea. As long as Xiao Chen did not provoke it, it would be fine. In the future, he would not need to use the Lich Fiend to strengthen his mental energy. That kind of untempered mental energy, no matter how much he had, would not be of much use." After wasting 10 days, Xiao Chen rested for a while. Then, he stopped hesitating and continued his training. He had to completely grasp that state of massacre. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble. Perhaps one day, he would become a slave to massacre and be controlled by the strange Scarlet Throne. Xiao Chen avoided the other cultivators and carefully chose his opponents along the way. Then, he stopped at a rather desolate place. About 2 kilometers to the north, there was a group of blood demons that had just finished fighting. The human cultivators had suffered a crushing defeat. The group of blood demons was currently enjoying a feast of human flesh. The scene was incredibly cruel. Even though Xiao Chen had seen many similar scenes, he still felt sorrowful in his heart. This was probably the most miserable ending for fallen cultivators. Xiao Chen closed his eyes and adjusted his emotions. When his mental state returned to normal, he made his move. Life bestowal spell. Xiao Chen shouted, and 10 odd figures made of blood quickly appeared on the surface of the water. They looked exactly like humans, there was no difference from the naked eye. Xiao Chen was already very familiar with using the life bestowal spell to lure away the demons. Soon, 10 odd high-ranked blood demons chased after him with sinister smiles. 12 high-ranked blood demons should still be within my limits. I can challenge them. Looking at the remaining blood demons, Xiao Chen circulated the state of massacre. Then, he grasped the lunar shadow saber and charged at the blood demons. Chapter 5:14. Ka Xie. Xiao Chen drew the lunar shadow saber, and a red light flickered. The intense battle started. One high-ranked blood demon was already as strong as a superior grade martial king. 12 high-ranked blood demons would be even harder to deal with than the 9 cultivators that Xiao Chen killed earlier. The battle lasted for a long time. In the midst of the intense killing, Xiao Chen executed all his martial techniques and movement techniques to their limits. In the end, the battle still could not end. Xiao Chen could only bring out his state of massacre to its limits. The boundless desire to massacre dominated his mind once again. Xiao Chen's saber techniques immediately turned even sharper. The scarlet eyes of Xiao Chen made him look even more like a demon than the demons. Blood continued to flow from the pitch-black saber. Xiao Chen's white robes were dyed red once again. When the last high-rank blood demon died to Xiao Chen, countless beams of red light made of killing intent headed for his forehead. The blood pool in the Scarlet Throne also increased rapidly. The bloodlust that had been suppressed for a long time finally erupted. The clash of reason and desire caused Xiao Chen to sink into boundless pain once again. The expression on his face was very horrifying. Xiao. A dim light flashed, and Len Yu appeared. Her pure face instantly turned incredibly bewitching. Her pair of almond eyes bloomed like peach blossoms, tender and alluring. With just one look, one would sink into them. Strangely, the moment Len Yu appeared, Xiao Chen's pain lessened significantly. His eyes also turned from scarlet to scarlet. The desire to kill gradually subsided and was replaced by an instinctive desire. A hazy illusion appeared in Xiao Chen's eyes. The Len Yu before him seemed to become the perfect goddess in his heart. She looked pure and bewitching. She smiled faintly, captivating. With one glance, she looked like the lover that he had waited for many years. This kind of charm technique was not purely a seduction of lust. Instead, it entered the depths of one's heart, stirring the most obscure feeling in the depths. She is the person you are looking for. She is the woman who can accompany you to the end on the path of martial arts. Even if the world changed, even if the seas dried up and the rocks crumbled, even if the world changed, even if time passed by, she would still silently accompany you until the end. Such words kept ringing in one's mind, like hypnosis, telling one over and over again to make one believe that it was the truth. There was only one desire in one's heart, and that was to possess her, to possess all of her, her body, her soul, her everything. It was extremely terrifying. Compared to the desire to kill, it was actually not the slightest bit weaker. With his tenacious willpower, Xiao Chen tried to resist this temptation and mend his lost soul bit by bit. Seeing that Xiao Chen had completely forgotten about his desire to kill, Len Yu smiled faintly and dispersed her charm technique. She stood calmly in front of Xiao Chen. After a long time, Xiao Chen opened his eyes. They were incomparably calm as he looked at Len Yu. He already believed what she had said at the beginning. Only I can bring you back from your lust for slaughter. Xiao Chen said calmly, your charm technique seems to have improved. Does it have anything to do with the earlier matter? Naturally, the earlier matter referred to the matter of Len Yu absorbing the swordsman's yang energy. Len Yu nodded and did not deny it. Xiao Chen looked at Len Yu and discovered that she had hidden herself even more deeply than he had imagined. He said bluntly, if one day, you do not disperse your charm technique and I fall into it, what will happen? Len Yu revealed a gentle smile on her pure and fair face. She said ambiguously, who knows? It looks like the spirit blood jade cannot completely control her, Xiao Chen thought to himself. If she succeeds in bewitching me, it would be easy for her to escape the spirit blood jade's control. Without saying anything more, Xiao Chen refined some water from the Scarlet Sea and casually washed his body. Then, he started his experiential training again. Xiao Chen had not truly grasped the state of massacre yet. He needed to fill his mind with the state of massacre but still maintain a calm heart. Only then would he be considered successful. Time slowly went by. The deeper Xiao Chen went into the inner area, the stronger the demons he met. Every battle was hair-raising. There were several times when he was severely injured and on the verge of death. He broke through his limits again and again as he hovered on the border of life and death. The scarlet pool in the Scarlet Throne had already turned into a lake of blood. It was many times larger than before. Now, with just a thought, the surging state of massacre would spew out. However, when Xiao Chen brought out the state of massacre to its limits, the desire to sink into it became even more berserk. If it were not for Len Yu's assistance, he might not have been able to hold on. Every day and night, aside from fighting, there was only fighting. There were endless battles, endless massacres. As a result, Xiao Chen's combat experience became increasingly rich. In battle, his usage of saber techniques and fist techniques became more flexible. Sometimes, he could even modify some martial techniques to make them more suitable for him. The cruelty of the deep-sea battlefield made Xiao Chen's state of mind even more resolute. The cultivators that became food for the demons also pushed him forward continuously. If Xiao Chen did not want to become food for the demons, he could only become stronger, stronger, stronger. On this particular day, after Xiao Chen finished his battles, Lin Yu pulled him back from the state of massacre and made a request. I do not want to enter the spirit blood jade again. I do not like the environment there. Xiao Chen had long since understood that Lin Yu did not like the environment in the spirit blood jade. Back then, when she was severely injured, she still refused to enter. She must have experienced something that caused her to be extremely afraid of that environment. Xiao Chen muttered, "Sure. If you say you do not want to enter, then I will not enter." Lin Yu was somewhat surprised. She had not expected Xiao Chen to agree so easily. After all, it would be troublesome for a human to see an Eros demon beside a cultivator. Lin Yu lowered her head and said softly, "Thank you." Boom! 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 Just at this moment, Xiao Chen heard a loud explosion in the distance. Ripples spread out from the surface of the sea. When the ripples reached Xiao Chen's feet, a force came from above. Caught off guard, Xiao Chen was sent flying. Fortunately, Xiao Chen reacted very quickly. He used some force to stand back up, and vital qi came from his feet. When the two forces clashed, they formed a 10-meter-tall wall of water in front of Xiao Chen. What a powerful person! Even though the shock waves traveled so far, they are still so strong. That person should have the combat prowess of a great perfection half-step martial monarch, Xiao Chen thought to himself. This is not the deepest part of the inner area. It is rare to see such a strong cultivator. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen decided to go over and take a look. After 15 minutes, he saw the scene of the battle with his spiritual sense. A young cultivator in bright yellow robes stood on the Scarlet Sea. He was leading 20-odd winged demons alone. Flaming palm. The young man shouted and sent out thousands of flaming palms. The flaming palms exploded among the group of winged demons, injuring several of them. The thousands of flaming palms exploded and merged into an intense shockwave that spread out in all directions. The ripples that Xiao Chen had encountered at the start should have been caused by this move. When Xiao Chen saw all this, he was astonished. Even he would not dare to attract so many winged demons at once. At most, 15 winged demons would be his limit. Furthermore, Xiao Chen had not expected this person to be so young. This person did not look much older than him, but he was already a half-step martial monarch. His overall combat prowess was comparable to Bai Lishi's. There should not be such a genius among the young cultivators of the four nations. This person should be a genius cultivator of the Great Jin Nation or a local expert of the Boundless Sea. The winged demons flew very fast. After they blocked this attack, they immediately caught up to the young cultivator. If they surrounded him, no matter how high his cultivation was, only death awaited him. The young man did not panic. Ice attributed spiritual energy gathered in his palms. Strands of white cold qi appeared in his palms as he pushed them forward. Bo! Specks of frost spread among the group of winged demons. When the frost touched the bodies of the winged demons, it immediately turned into hard ice, slowing them down. The young cultivator took advantage of this opportunity to retreat. The distance between him and the winged demons increased once more. Then, he executed a group fire-attributed attack. This repeated over and over again. The young cultivator's expression remained calm. Although there were many winged demons, they were all within his control. They could not attack him at all. The young cultivator's martial techniques of the ice and fire attributes were very smooth. When combined with his peak movement technique, it gave the impression that he was toying with the high-ranked winged demons in the palm of his hand. However, Xiao Chen knew that this person was playing with fire, dancing on the tip of a knife. If he was not careful, he would immediately die here, becoming food for the winged demons. However, the young cultivator was indeed qualified to dance on the tip of a knife. Perhaps this kind of exciting and stressful game was what he sought. After another 15 minutes, the 30-odd high-ranked winged demons were toyed to death. However, the young cultivator did not seem to suffer any injuries. The yellow-robed cultivator was not in a rush to clean up the battlefield. He looked in the direction of Xiao Chen and said softly, "Friend, after watching for so long, do you not intend to show yourself?" The voice was not loud, but Xiao Chen, who was a kilometer away, heard it clearly. The other party must have sensed his spiritual sense. The battle had just ended, so this person only had 50% of his strength left. Xiao Chen did not need to be afraid. He slowly walked over from a distance and looked at the young man calmly. He said, "I do not have any malicious intent. I am just passing by." The yellow-robed cultivator sized up Xiao Chen with his deep eyes. He was not blinded by Xiao Chen's cultivation. In Xiao Chen's eyes, the yellow-robed cultivator saw a vast, hidden killing intent. There was also the faint hum of a saber. When the yellow-robed cultivator looked back and discovered Leng Yu behind Xiao Chen, he frowned slightly. His expression instantly turned cold. Without saying anything, he directly sent a palm strike over. Bang! A huge wave immediately soared up from the Scarlet Sea. Cold chi quickly spread out from the scarlet waves and solidified into a huge scarlet ice palm, pressing towards Xiao Chen. The huge scarlet ice palm was more than 500 meters tall. Its 5 fingers were like pillars supporting the sky. The lines on the scarlet palm were clear, and scarlet cold chi spread out from it. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.